Councilwoman Johnson. Councilwoman Robinson. Councilman Warren.
Present. Our first item is fiscal operating budget request from Director Alex Smith, Chief of Human Resources. General Healthcare, Other Post-Employment Benefits, OPEB, date May 11th. Chief Smith, could you please lead the way?
Absolutely. Alex Smith here, Chief HR Officer for the City of Memphis. I reside at 1440 Island Place East, Memphis, Tennessee. And it's my pleasure to present our fund request for 2024 for the general healthcare and other employment benefit programs. To start off with some remarks, in January 2016, as the new Chief HR Officer for the City of Memphis, I was tasked with finding new approaches for attracting and retaining talent for the city. To strategically meet this challenge, I and the HR division team members conducted compensation and engagement surveys and held several meetings to understand how to improve hiring, working conditions, pay, and benefits for city employees. When we talked with employees, we heard a variety of concerns. For example, when we met with solid waste employees, we heard their concerns about retirement and career development opportunities. When we met with firefighters and police officers, we heard their concerns about promotions, compensation, and health insurance. Also, in speaking with retirees, we heard their concerns about health insurance affordability and access. More importantly, rather than just hearing employee and retiree concerns, we listened. We understood that the city was facing numerous challenges, and it was important that we developed a plan to help address them. From our first offsite as an HR leadership team, I challenged our HR team to think and work differently to help our divisions meet these challenges. I asked them to dream about what was possible, and as a result, we began a transformation with our first budget by restructuring and creating the Offices of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Talent Management. The next year, we created our Office of Total Rewards, and over the years, with your support, we've invested in recruiting, training, wellness, inclusion, and safety. We created new processes and relationships with our divisions, promoting a people-focused agenda. In the past 7 years, the men and women of the HR division have made remarkable strides and successfully achieved what many thought was impossible for city government. When we started, it took us 120 days to hire. Now it takes us less than 50 days. We established performance recognition programs, wellness incentives, created a private exchange to provide health insurance access to pre-65 and post-65 retirees, and we were the first municipality to offer a student loan contribution program. We solved a 50-year issue by creating a 457B matching program for solid waste Social Security employees. We invested in mental health, offering our employees 10 free mental health visits as well as digital wellness apps. And we implemented group health insurance and pension reform for police and fire, as well as multiple cloud implementations and process improvements. And during the pandemic, we established a contact tracing center, COVID testing and vaccination incentives, and innovative COVID-19 support programs like our student learning hubs that helped us keep city government going. I'm so proud of our HR division and all the work that we've accomplished. And as the Strickland administration ends this year, I want to thank the men and women of the HR division who worked tirelessly, stood beside me, and worked with me to do this incredible work. The HR division team members are outstanding. I am forever grateful to my team. I also want to thank city employees for their patience, participation, and the feedback that they provided us over the years that has helped us grow and develop as a division. I want to thank our city council for your support, our division directors for your partnership, and lastly, I want to thank Mayor Strickland for having the courage to hire a 33-year-old outsider 7 years ago who had big ideas and great passion. The HR team and I truly appreciate his continued support. My budget presentation today is simple. We want to continue our momentum of attracting and retaining talent for the city. We request $8.9 million for the general fund, a 1.4% increase from last year, $97 million for the healthcare fund, which is $500,000 less from FY23, and $22 million for the OPEB fund, a 4% decrease from FY23. We need these funds to continue essential programs in HR services in FY24. We don't want to lose momentum, but build on our gains over the last 7 years, as well as help our divisions meet the current labor market challenges that they have. I will now detail our plans. From an organizational structure standpoint, going to slide 2, we continue to maintain the same complement number of 63. We're not requesting any new complement, and our service centers have remained the same. Our purpose continues to be the same, which is to build and engage workforce to make life better for all Memphians. And our goal, which is number one, attract and retain public safety talent and top talent for the city of Memphis, drive culture change and automation. As we go into FY24, our focus areas are around retaining talent, recruiting talent, and filling hard-to-fill positions, and that's where we're spending our energy and our money. And from an individual service center perspective, we have different programs that are helping us do that, everything from our NAVEX policy tool, safety prevention programs, our employee check-in program, implicit bias training, and continuing to expand our total rewards program. Going to slide 6, now 7. Our request of $8.9 million, as I mentioned, is $1.6 million increase from year over year, primarily driven from the 2% salary increase as proposed by Mayor Strickland. Going to slide 9, once again showing our request of $8.9 million, 1.6% increase year over year, be due to the salary increase. And then this shows the detail. Once again, you see that that increase is due to that salary increase, as you can see in the salaries line. From a revenue standpoint, we still maintain the AmeriCorps Vista program. We're on target to hire 14 AmeriCorps Vistas, and as a part of that program, we receive a federal grant, and that has been relatively consistent, although we do expect a small decrease, and that's due to the contract obligations as related to that grant. And once again, showing that $2,000 decrease. From a personnel standpoint, we have 4 vacancies. We're in process of filling all 4. And from an M&S standpoint, we continue to focus on public safety, with 26% of our budget focused around public safety, particularly with medicals and pre-employment testing. This also shows our top line for professional services. Sedgwick, which helps us with our OJI claims, is one of our top vendors. We also have several others that help us in managing day-to-day responsibilities. We continue to have a small subset that sit at Union Extended, so our rent is $80,000 for that for the year. And then our MWBE spend, 25% certified MWBE, 35% total with certified and non-certified. And that concludes the general fund. We can.
I have one question. Are there any other questions on general fund before we proceed? Okay, go ahead, and then I'll ask my last. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your years of service. And I appreciate everything that you did. We've heard from several other different divisions, and we talked about the increase that they receive. And we're always talking about the first responders. I think all the employees are first responders. I find it difficult to sometimes to isolate one from the other. So my problem is, why 2%? Show me what it would cost at 4%. That's going to be on my wish list. So
let's add that to a wish list. Okay, thank you.
You know, I think everybody is important, and we all, you know, we're talking about it's a problem with keeping the labor force, and that's in every department. You know, let's the employees know we appreciate everything that you do, and every day that you come to work. Only thing I ask is, you know, y'all got some slackers too. Let's be real about it. Y'all need to find a way to talk to them and tell them to come to work. Because if everybody comes to work, even though we may have less, we can get the job done, and in return, you should get paid the difference. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I just think, Alex, if you could tell them about that big hole that you've got for that vacant position in administration, person that we lost to, where did they go, to the school board?
So that, yes, that is in the healthcare fund, although tomorrow is his last day, so you wouldn't see.
Okay, so that's not this position.
Yes.
Never mind, we'll talk about that later. Thank you. Yeah.
So what Council Member Warren is talking about is we're losing one of our top senior managers in our total rewards office to Shelby County Schools. And it's an opportunity. First of all, we thank him for William Byrd for his 14 years of service, and we are really appreciative of everything that he's done. But it's just another example of how challenging it is in the labor market and how tough it is to compete for talent. And from a salary standpoint, it is just very, very difficult. And we are, of course, doing the best that we can, given the money and resources that we have. But it is a competitive labor market.
Question?
Yes, Councilman
Since y'all
Johnson.
raised the issue. So it's competitive, so were we able to make offers to him in this situation? I mean, let's not just say him, but employees in that setting. Are we able to do such?
We are, and we will do salary evaluations and other things to look at opportunities to compete when somebody has a competing offer. But there are some times where just structurally, somebody's particularly at a very senior level, there isn't another role, and so we just have to
He
accept.
stepped up to a level higher than we may even have here in the
Right.
city.
Available, and sometimes that occurs as well, which is a natural part of just organizational turnover, which can occur. And on one hand, we are proud and excited that people can grow and develop here and then go on to other places. We have seen people return back to us after getting certain experiences, so we don't necessarily think that it's a goodbye forever, but it does mean that we have certain limitations of what we can do as an organization.
I instructed her to go try to raid the school system. Trust me. All right, thank you, Chief Smith. Any other questions? Right, and next is general fund material supplies. We did that already, so now we're on healthcare fund.
Yes, sir. Moving to the healthcare fund, right now we have 13,251 covered lives on our healthcare fund between healthcare actually and OPEB. As we moved into FY23, we focused on really returning to having more biometrics in person and helping to support our employees from a health and wellness standpoint. As we go into FY24, as you know, we are a part of a medical, or we are issuing a medical RFP right now, and several other RFPs in order to help drive for better cost efficiencies and services for our city employees. So the budget that you see before you right now is based on our current plan design, but we do recognize that as we're going through this RFP process, that things may be subject to change as we go into the next fiscal year. But given where we are right now with our singular plan, this is the budget that we're requesting. We do expect that we'll be able to stay within this budget even post medical RFP based on the deep discounts we perceive we'll be able to get from the competing bidders. So at this point, for our FY24 request, we're requesting $97 million, which is $573,000 less than the previous year. And primarily this is driven by the claims and the discounts that we're able to achieve from everyone being in one plan, which is our select plan. Going to slide 28, you see once again that the funding budget, we're requesting $97 million, $573,000 less from the previous year. And slide 29, once again, you see the breakdown, and you can clearly see that the $4.7 million decrease in claims expense. Now, what you also see, which is when Mayor Strickland gave his presentation, he talked about our premiums and overall employer costs increasing in the plan. So with the select plan, we provide a HRA account. And so with the plan design change, we anticipate our HRA funding needing to increase by $2.7 million. And so that is the cost that we bear as an employer. And so that's where you see that there. But as you can see here, it's offset by the claims expense going down by $4.7 million. From a revenue discussion, once again, with us being the singular select plan, you see the employer premiums income expense increased by $4 million. Once again, it's because of the way the plan design currently looks. The cost share is more like 80-20, so we're actually bearing more medical expense on our side. But with us going to medical RFP, as I mentioned, we'll be shifting, getting back closer to a 70-30 split, but we expect to offset that by having deeper discounts from the TPAs and hospital networks to help us stay within this budget. And once again, you see a net change of $528,000, and you see that the employee premium income has increased due to the plan design change, and the employee contribution has decreased because of the plan design change. From a personnel standpoint, we are maintaining the same complement year over year. M&S standpoint, you see our administrative fees, which have been consistent. It's a little bit more this year at $4.6 million. But our professional services line and rent continues to stay the same year over year. Then these are our other professional services that we use to help maintain our healthcare plan and our overall rent expense at the Union Extended location. And that concludes my presentation on the healthcare fund.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any council members? Councilwoman Johnson.
I gotta make up for everything.
Well, we're
else.
glad that you're here.
I have a question. Who determines the amount of the deductible an employee has to pay for health insurance?
We do.
Y'all thought $5,000 was reasonable?
5,000. Well, so I think, and I'm going to pull out the, yeah.
Well, it's whatever, 5,000.
But we also offset that with the HRA as well. So with the family side, they get a 1,500 HRA to go with it. And we can actually.
I think mine's single and mine was 5,000. I think they told me.
I think you're talking about the out of pocket.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The deductible that you have to pay.
Well, it's a little bit different. That's
Okay.
the out of pocket max. The deductible is slightly different.
Can you explain that and sort of talk to that?
Okay.
How about you?
Yep. This is Dr. Yolanda Drain. She's our total rewards officer. So
Okay.
compensation and benefits sit under her leadership.
This is always confusing, so it's worth taking a moment. Thank you, Dr. Drain. Just introduce yourself and address.
Good afternoon, Dr. Yolanda Drain. The actual single in-network deductible for the select plan is $1,500, and the family is $3,000. I think you may have been referring to the out-of-network deductible, but it's actually $3,000 for single and $6,000 for family.
Is that the new one? Or is that the one that was there last year?
This is our select plan.
Was it there in place last year?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, somebody misled me because I was trying to get a procedure done. And my out-of-pocket was $1,275 just for that. And they said, well, until you reach 5,000, you're going to have to pay it.
Where was that procedure being done and when?
Methodist?
So Methodist is out of network
Yeah, but
now,
that was when they were in network.
and you had the select plan of the choice. Choice or select?
Whatever the highest was.
That's choice.
Okay. So let us talk with you
Okay, I'm
after
just
this
fine,
about
but
that.
that's- I mean, just in general, I mean, I did what I had to do, but I was just trying to figure out if if it was $5,000, that's a lot of money that you expect people to have to pay for medical expenses.
Yes, but the out of pocket max. Is it right here? Okay. Yeah. So depending on, so if you had the choice plan, and this is a select plan, so, but now everybody's in the select plan. Yeah. So the out of pocket max for a single is $10,000 for out of network, $5,000 for a single. But as I mentioned, we have the HRA to help support with that. And then we also will work with you depending on what facility you're going to and seeing how we can help support from that standpoint as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So let's go with, Councilman Ford.
If we gave them that 4%, how much would that be? I know you had your calculator going over there.
Stop watching me. Good afternoon, Councilmember Shirley Ford, Chief Financial Officer. In round numbers, that would be approximately $4.4 million. It's about 1.1 for each percentage. The higher you go, you might have some complications related to compression and things like that. But on a good quick average is 1.1 million per 1% increase for the general employees.
So an extra 2.2 million over what the mayor's proposed.
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Let's move on to OPEB
Okay, for the OPEB fund.
and let the record show that Councilman Canali has joined us.
Yes. Other post-employment benefits fund. So currently we have 1,651 on our group health insurance. It's increased by 274 due to the sales tax referendum, so essentially police and fire. Our private exchange, Medicare subscribers is still relatively flat at 1,520. Our private public exchange for pre-65 is at 445. And we continue to offer the competitive programs for our retirees while, of course, staying within budget and being fiscally responsible with our OPEB liability. For FY24, we're requesting $22 million or $952,000 less than last year, which is 4% less. We're on slide 43. $952,000 less for the OPEB fund. And going to slide 45, once again showing we are requesting $22.9 million, $952,000 less from last year. This primarily due to our singular plan change of us moving to the select plan. And this shows it in detail where you can see we have a small increase in the health reimbursement account and our claims expense going down by $1 million because of the change in plan design. From a revenue standpoint, you see that our employer premium income actually went down year over year based on the plan design change, but we did see an increase in our pharmacy rebates. We also have an increase in the transfer in based on the sales tax referendum to $8.7 million. So overall, where we are, as I mentioned, is $952,000 less year over year for the OPEB fund. Personnel has remained the same year over year. M&S, we're at $843,000 consistent year over year for our M&S expenditures, and our top professional services are our actuaries and legal counsel. And our rent for the team that's at Union Extended is roughly $21,000 for the year. And that concludes the OPEB fund.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief. I just want to tell you it's been a pleasure being on the Health and Human Resources Committee, Health Oversight Committee with you guys, and being involved in this. It's one of those things where I think the unfortunate occurrence of us losing our choice plan and going to this single plan, I think does point out the cost savings that we have if we can actually drive our purchasing power. And I think as we go into this next bout of requests for proposals, I think we're going to get much better proposals coming to us, and we hopefully can get better care at better savings for our citizens and for our employees.
Absolutely.
I hope that's what we see. And thank you again for letting me work with you.
Absolutely.
Councilwoman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate the diligence that you all have placed. I am so excited. This is so much different than when I started. You made great improvements, leaps by leaps and bounds. But I want to know, what is the plan for our retirees moving forward that is in your budget, right?
From a OPEB retiree healthcare standpoint?
Yes.
Yeah. So the plan is we're going to continue to offer our group health insurance private exchange programs. We're also engaging in more, I would call it retiree engagement, where we're having quarterly events and other things to try to help our retirees from a health and wellness perspective. So that is our focus going into FY24 from a healthcare standpoint.
Okay.
So this is my concern. I was listening to the questions by Councilwoman Johnson, and because our retirees, the bulk of them, don't get increases in their retirement, when everybody else is getting increases with their, especially if they're on Social Security, they get an increase, a little bump every year. They can't afford this insurance package. And what you just told us, that they have to spend out of pocket, there's no way they can do it. We need to talk about how we can get them something extra to levelize so that they don't end up in the soup line if they're not already there. And that's really important. We can't leave out the people who given their lives to work for the citizens of Memphis and just leave them out there to dry. You know, we've got to make sure that we do something to encourage them on a regular basis, not just when a council member like me just say, now let's do something for them. We need a schedule so that they can plan for what future they have. Okay.
I understand.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Please let the record show that I made it. I am happy to see all of you. I'm sorry. It started last night, but there was a couple plumbing emergencies in my house. And anyway, I spent the vast majority of the day doing it myself, which is painful. Yeah. I know a thing or two. I know it's shocking. You see the guy, you're like, he probably called somebody. Nope. Wasted a day, but saved a little bit. Worth it. Worth it. To General Services, God bless you. I've got two questions, and one is more, I've raised this issue before, and I know that Chief McGowan's looked at it. It's part of 100 North Main. So it's tangential to you, and then I'm gonna come back directly. But when I look at these leases, it's very painful because I think about our borrowing ability. And like, if you looked at what we borrow, like if we borrow at 5%, which we borrow less than that, like the value of what we could borrow against just to own our own asset. And I know it's larger than that because then we have to take care of it and all that stuff. But at some point, I wish we could take like a harder look at, and Otis didn't like that I said that this building was obsolete, even though it technically basically kind of is. But really, I feel like there's an opportunity, even if it's to buy the buildings that we're in. I mean, this one's an older asset. I know this building, but I just hate that there's so much cash out the door that we can borrow against. And I know that that's something that I know you guys have talked about over the years, but it just always, it's hard to look at when you look at an annual amount of that. Just a general note. Chief Smith, what, as our general premiums have risen, what is the relationship between the employer and employee contribution percentage in now?
So we're now at a 80-20% split because everyone's in the select plan. Yeah. And so we understand that we're going to have to make a shift going back to 70-30, but we are anticipating as a part of this medical RFP, we're going to be able to get some deeper discounts as well as some better pharmacy rebates that'll help us stay within the budget that we're requesting today.
Yeah, I mean, I would still contend, we've talked about this before, I would contend it's all relational, like deductibles and all those things, but it's hard to find employers, and maybe it's gone up in the last 5 or 6 years since I've really looked at it on a market level, like a global picture. But to find an employer contributing 80% is pretty incredible. I mean, usually it's somewhere between 60, 70 if you're really lucky. So that's, I mean, I just want that out there for the record. Like, I recognize our healthcare costs are going up, but the cities, at least since I've been here, try to absorb almost every hit to that as we've gone through it. There was a question, I'm going to catch you off guard. It may not have made it back to you, but Councilman Canale asked a question, and you don't necessarily have to answer it because I think Chief Ryan and Chief Ford wanted to dig into it with you. But since you're here, yesterday we were talking about certain divisions that have carried the load because they have constant vacancies, like general services or some certain parts of public works, and looking at some sort of alternative. Obviously, we can't dictate complements. We can reduce the personnel line, which is, I don't think, something that we want to start like hacking away at, because there's a deeper institutional understanding of each one of these divisions.
Right.
But some sort of way, and my point, in the private sector, it's a spot bonus. I don't know what that is in the public sector, but if you guys, and hop in forward, but ultimately trying to identify some of these divisions where the workload is still being completed, maybe not as fast, but it's more work, same workforce, same kind of hit. So if that's,
So I do want you to know we have some mechanisms in place. So when we started in 2016, we started actually a spot bonus program called Bravo Memphis to help us with that, and that helps us provide not only on the spot bonuses for a certain for certain work, but also for certain projects. So we've been able to expand that into project bonuses as well, and we have capped that I think around $2,000. And so we offer that, and then we have of course gotten into the retention bonuses and other things with different divisions, hiring bonuses as well. So we've experimented with a number of different things. Deputy Chief Adams and I had a conversation about general services and looking at how we can do more. And so he's working through a plan with his team to look at what would be helpful for them. We've explored everything from apprenticeship programs and other incentives to be able to support their division. And we'll continue to do that and partner with each of our directors. I think what you'll hear from our team is that we want to make sure that the directors have what they need to be successful, and we will work with them in every single way, and everything from above entry requests when they're hiring and we get a competitive offer and we need to try to up our salary, we try to do that where we can, to also looking at different bonus structures and incentive structures to help them too. So we're definitely supportive of that.
Yeah, I mean, my point was, and I certainly want to continue to feed the pipeline, right? But for the people, the men and women that have stuck with us, my only issue with the spot bonus is it's not going to go towards their pension. And for the positions that have been vacant for 6, 12, 18 months, and that crew has been doing the job, getting the job done, to reward them and say, hey, we appreciate you. We're going to incentivize you to stay with us instead of bouncing to the private sector like many have done. Right. Director Adams has seen it. Director Connect has seen it. And be competitive again. And I'm not one to say that if a compliment is 30, that it should be reduced to 20. But I think you could look at it and see that, hey, maybe if we come down a percentage, then we can take that, if that's budgeted anyway, and we can spread that out across those employees that are with us and that we need to stick with us. And of course, yeah, you're always planning for the future, always trying to incentivize people to go and get licensed in the trades that we need. But for those men and women that have stuck with us, we're only as good as our employees. And as the workload continues to increase upon them, something that shows that, hey, we appreciate you. Maybe not so much. I think bonuses are okay for a sign-on bonus or for a relocation bonus. But for those men and women that have been with us and continue to stick with us, I think we need to show them some appreciation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And then the last thing that I raised, and this is for the next administration because it would be a massive undertaking, but if it were me coming into the big seat, I would start taking it a holistic approach to how we're recruiting and training. And what I really mean by that is you look at a lot of the private sector businesses, and like I use Peterbilt and some of these major diesel mechanic firms, like they have just created their own schools. Like in reality, we can offer to send people to more tech. We can offer to send them to CAP. We can offer to send them nursing. But you can't get spots in them. And so we're like the third largest employer? Mm-hmm. I mean, right. And not every position is VOTEC, so to speak, or high-tech manufacturing, which I don't think we have any. But the point is that we're trying to find spots for people. And I often wonder if bringing some of those programs in-house or diving in and trying to figure out how to work with, and I know we do work with SCS. I know you guys have done a lot. I'm not saying that you haven't, but to take one more step in that direction, to have those schools in our actual system. So you're hired by the city of Memphis, you're trained in the city's school, et cetera, would be something that I hope the next administration starts to look at if the labor market doesn't shift back our way, which I'm not quite sure it's going to, especially in those positions, which is a shame because they pay so well, So this is our last budget season together. Tear. I've enjoyed working with you. I got to be the personnel chair for 2 years. It's been crazy. Like Jeff, I served on the healthcare oversight. We've had COVID, we've had labor shortages, we've had pension reform twice. So it's just been a lot. So I've really enjoyed the time, and I know that this isn't the last time I'll see you, but I thought I'd take the opportunity to say I've really enjoyed the relationship. So, colleagues, Councilwoman Robinson.
So everywhere she saved money, I said, put it on my wish list. You got it on the wish list. I mean, every spot, because I'd like to see some pension reform, and I'll be talking to you more about that.
Yes, ma'am. It is on there.
Thank you.
And for what it's worth, and we're done. We're good. Congratulations. For council members, so Brianna's taking copious notes and is typing up into daily reports. Once she gets an opportunity to get all that kind of put down, we'll send it out to everybody so they can just have kind of a minutes record before we get into wrap up. So you can, and that was part of yesterday, just make sure we're ready to go. Any closing remarks?
No, thank you.
All right. Let's move on. Parks is in here. It's so nice outside. Will someone call Nicholas?
They weren't expecting me to remove it, so it's got out.
I hear you. never really recessed, but we're back. We have Parks Operating and CIP, Director Walker. Take it away, sir.
Nick Walker, Memphis Parks Director, 2599 Avery. Start with our proposed operating budget for FY24. Our organizational chart is pretty wide because we cover a lot of stuff. But in terms of the organizational structure, essentially the first three items you see on the left, the administration, planning and development, and park operations fall under Deputy Director Marcia Allen. Memphis Zoo, the Brooks Museum, the Memphis Botanic Gardens, the stadium, and all external partners and managing the two deputy directors falls underneath me. The centers, golf, and recreation fall under the other deputy director, Cleo Griffin. We do front of the house, back of the house. So Marcia takes care of back of the house. Cleo takes care of front of the house.
I'm sorry, real quick. And
Yeah,
I wouldn't have interrupted you,
Yeah.
except for, can we talk just very
Sure.
briefly? So, Mosh.
Yes, sir.
That's where everything else, with Lichterman and all those other things.
Lichterman
people-
Nature
is
Center,
in
Mallory
that
Neely
group
House.
too.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. Just
Historic properties, Lichterman Nature Center, and the Museum of Science and History all fall underneath Mosh.
not important for this year on a note, but for next year, I would add that as a drop down, just to help. Sorry,
Definitely.
sorry for the interruption.
I got you. And so these are our goals, our strategic priorities goals, and then the projects that will implement those. If you would like, I can go into detail on this, but essentially, with each of them, we have sort of a number of initiatives, some of which are long-term, some of which are short-term. Things like developing an intermediate trails that serve as physical connectors is not something that we can do in 1 year, but it is something that we try to work with our partners on the green lines and the greenways to add a little bit to every year. Likewise, the Park Ranger program is in its third year of existence. This year, we are adding to it by adding part-time positions to the 5 rangers that are currently funded. So there are iterative steps to trying to get to that strategic priority, which is public spaces and parks.
When you say trails, are these like paved trails, or are these just cut? Okay.
Yes. So all the trails that we participate in, you'll see over at Overton, for instance, they're a big fan of the crushed asphalt trails or the crushed limestone trails. We typically work with groups like the Conservancy, the Wolf River Conservancy, and Nick Euler's group that kind of did the work on the Chelsea Green Line, and the folks in the Uptown TIF that are working on that trail expansion. We like to do wide asphalt trails for bike and pedestrian use. And then in youth programming, again, a high priority for us is growing our own lifeguards. There's a nationwide lifeguard shortage. What we found, and it's kind of cool, is that, like Linnea is a prime example. Linnea learned to swim this is our administrator for business operations. Learned to swim in our community centers, became a lifeguard in our community centers. That is a system that we like to encourage. And then, again, working on customer service. One of the reasons that we brought in Deputy Griffin is his background in both the YMCA and the Croc in that public-private partnership arena. You typically see a higher level of customer service in those facilities, just truthfully. And so we have tried to develop that customer service-oriented model, even though we don't charge for service. We're not a fee-for-service-based entity. We want people to have that same experience inside of our buildings. So that is a priority for us going forward.
Jeff, if you're looking for a summer job, they need lifeguards.
We do, man.
Actually, what I wanted to do is I wanted to see, can I get you together with the local Boy Scout Council?
Sure.
Like, I don't know if you realize Boy Scouts now have Girl Scouts in them too. So they're, and I think
You're talking to an Eagle Scout, sir.
Yeah, they have to, well, of course you are. They have to.
Order of the Arrow.
Yeah, but I was Order of the Arrow, Life Scout.
There you go.
We'll tell you the story about that later. Being that said, I think that's a natural way for us to grow them, and have you use your Eagle wherewithal to get with the local council to see if you could get lifeguards.
Yeah.
Have you done that?
No, we haven't done that, but I think that is a good idea.
Good, I had a better idea.
There you go. Good deal. Sounds good. So here's our expenditure bridge to FY24. Just a couple of notes on here. The big expenditure changes that you're going to see is personnel services. Our full-time salaries are increasing by $521,000, and our part-time salaries are increasing by $1,250,000 roughly, for a total increase of about 2.3. Some of that is obviously benefits, health insurance, things that go along to make the personnel line. But again, about 1.8 of that is just increase in salaries.
And what's driving that, Nick?
What is driving that is, and I believe Chief Ryan has alluded to this earlier, a resumption of staffing at pre-COVID levels.
Got it.
Particularly
More
in summer
part-time,
camp.
more
More part-time.
And that's why your bridge is always large. Is that okay?
Yep.
Got it.
So whereas police use overtime to supplement difficulties in full-time staffing, we use part-time salaries to supplement difficulties in full-time staffing. And I've got a breakdown if you'd like it, but by the legal level of what make up that part-time salaries. But the big driver is community centers, about $1 million, and most of that is summer, or not most of that. Most of that is year-round, but about 200,000 of that is summer camp.
Based on some of the questions that I think are coming, I think that would be appropriate to get everybody kind of an idea of how you staff part-time, specifically to community centers and parks and Super District 8.
Yes, sir. And then, again, in materials and services, this is the fun one is that these large numbers are in part driven by the stadium. More usage at the stadium and more usage at the golf courses. The old adage, it takes money to make money. We have to stock inventory. We have to pay for chemicals. We have to buy the soda and popcorn and beer. All of that comes at a cost, which is, of course, in both of those service centers recouped because they're offset by revenue. For the most part, golf operates, I want to say, around a 70% cost recovery, 60 to 70% cost recovery. The stadium is at 100% cost recovery, mostly. Program comparative spend. This is going through the big is in administration. You see an increase of about $643,000 compared to the FY23 budget. We're carrying the raises, the potential raises in here, so that's a good chunk of the increase there. And then community engagement, which for years we've just kind of grown that program. This year, for the first time, we actually gave them materials and supplies unit so they didn't have to go begging to the other service centers inside of parks in order to have funds for their activities. And then the other thing you'll see is park operations. We shifted the park rangers into park operations. They had kind of stood alone, but truthfully, they needed an administrator and that type of organizational system. So that's really the big increase that you see there. And then on the MOSH side, we have, as their positions have rolled off into the Museum of Science and History, so when they stop being City of Memphis employees and MOSH says we can pay market rate and they kind of want to work for us, we give them that option of trading the full-time salaries dollars for M&S dollars and then repurposing that position inside of parks.
So, and not to hold you up, but just a reminder. So the deal we struck is we basically dropped them in as a lessee of what's our structure? I know
theirs is a weird
recently.
structure. We are actually in the process, and Chief Ryan and I have been working on this to ultimately get them on much more of a zoo type situation where there's not City of Memphis employees. When the manager agreement was originally struck, it was a hybrid.
Okay.
Where we paid for a good chunk of their staff, they covered some other things. Over time, it's become much more like the zoo, and at some point, the management agreement needs to reflect that, where it's just we give them a big check at the beginning of the year and we say best of luck.
Right.
Is our ultimate goal there.
So we'll have some responsibility to the facilities. They'll have their responsibility to their employment, the operations, and what we would call the ordinary R&M. Okay, cool.
That's the goal. Yes, sir.
Is that why Brooks isn't in the museum? All the other museums in Brooks is different?
So that is part of the reason, because the Brooks, since its origination, has always stood alone as to where the city gave a management fee to them. We had some obligations to the building, but there has never been that, at least to my knowledge, if it has been, it's been a long time, city employees that worked at the Brooks Museum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Okay, and then if we move into the year-over-year changes in expenditures, again, you'll see the big driver there is part-time salaries. And again, some of that is just backfilling changes that happened because of COVID when there was less utilization of the facilities. The other big thing is, and I'm really glad that the administration is supportive of us on this, we have decreased the ratio of increase the ratio of staff to campers. There have been times where we have operated at a 1 to 25 ratio, which is unconscionable. If you think about the age of the kids we're dealing with, if you went into a school environment, 1 to 25 is dangerous. If you go into a community center environment, it's borderline unethical. We have pushed that back to 1 to 15. Our goal is to get to 1 to 15 this year. Some of that's going to be, can we staff the full complement of 149 folks for it? We feel good about where we are at that point. And again, not because of budgetary reasons, but because of hiring reasons. And I'm sure you guys have heard that constant refrain. It's just difficult to find a workforce right now. And then the other big driver is market rate adjustments, particularly in park operations. We have, in order to keep the folks that we need, in order to be able to take care of the parks, we had to go out and do market rate studies. HR was very supportive on that. We also increased the crew members' pays and the mower operator pays in order to be competitive in this environment. And truthfully, that'll probably just continue for a while. And then if you go through the M&S, you'll see the same phrase used over and over again, which is inflationary increases. It costs more to buy chemicals. It costs more to buy gas. It costs more to, pay our utility bills.
But what's in our, your largest, I mean, this is in the back, but it ties to it.
Yeah.
You're picking up $2.8 million in the stadium.
So the stadium lists virtually all of its contracts under miscellaneous professional services because they're contracting caterers for the food services. They're contracting the grounds crew.
So they're growing almost 100% in expense.
Well, actually,
I mean, it's a recovery. I mean, I get it, but
it's actually not. And that's and Chief Ford wants to talk about it. If you'll look at the adjustments that we've had to make over the last 2 years, this is really just a reflection of what has happened the last 2 years. We're just finally acknowledging it at the beginning of the budget season. But yeah, that's the biggest driver of miscellaneous professional services is the stadium because virtually everything is booked in miscellaneous professional services. And then, yes.
Let's back this up with the stadium again.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard it with the zoo.
Yes, ma'am.
I got the impression that we were actually funding the zoo personnel.
At one point, they have attrited all of their employees over the last 10 years. And so as their employees have left, they've converted those positions over to Memphis Zoological Society positions. There are no City of Memphis employees that work at the zoo anymore.
Okay, what's the $5 million for then?
The $5 million is, I believe, their management fee.
Is that what this is about?
Well, I didn't reference the zoo. I was at the stadium. The numbers have gone up because attendance has gone up.
Don't confuse me because I'm
Yes,
trying
ma'am.
to get to the
No, I understand.
Okay, what is the $5 million for? Is it for the management fee? What is it for?
It's, I believe, a combination of the management fee, their sewer fees, and I think it's their management fee and their utilities. We do a quarterly reconciliation where there's sewer fees, and it's because it's spelled out in their management agreement, which is also a fairly old management agreement.
Okay, how old is the management agreement?
Man, it's more than 20 years. It references the Memphis Parks Commission, just to give you an idea of how long it's been around.
So I guess they're sustaining themselves. I know when we were going through the COVID situation, they were going totally under. You know, they needed all the help in the world.
Yeah. I was gonna say they've got a really great new executive director.
Yeah,
and Matt's a great guy, and they do so many innovative things over there. They do really good programming. They're really good partners of ours. They allow us to do field trips there every summer. They bring out their zoo on wheels to do programming in the community centers. So, but I would say that combined with our assistance and the fact that, I mean, all you got to do is drive out there on a Saturday. There's plenty of people going through the doors.
Do we ever get an audit from them to let us know exactly what type of funds they're taking in or anything like that from that group?
Since they're a nonprofit, I'm pretty sure that's public record.
Well, it is in the city because they receive city funding. They're required to do that, and as a part of their ARPA funding, as a sub-grantee, they're required to provide that audit.
ARPA, that's what I'm for sure with the ARPA. Okay, so now we're coming down to the stadium, the $3 million.
And so this is where I put the caveat out there that the way that the stadium operates is different than virtually anything outside of an enterprise fund. As in, the city does not actually give them funds, and the funds do not actually come back to us. The stadium operates off of the revenue that it receives from rentals and concession sales. We are showing a reflection of that in our budget because it is a city-owned facility, an operated facility. But at the end of the day, it operates at a near 100% cost recovery. And in fact, best that I can tell, the city has not made a payment to the stadium outside of the year that the Classic had to be canceled because of rain. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Lightning, yes, ma'am. That was the last time that the city made a direct payment outside of the ARPA funding, which was, again, to cover lost revenues. There hasn't been, outside of those two incidents in the last 6-8 years, that there has been money transferred from the city to the stadium.
So that's an extra $3 million out there.
That's there. So again, similar to, or not similar to, what I was saying earlier is the last 2 years, this year and last year, we have brought to you budget adjustments to show that they've brought in, the budget had not been adjusted since COVID. And so we were showing them bringing in X amount of revenue and using X amount of expenses based upon COVID numbers. And so the last 2 years, as the crowds have come back, we've had to sort of adjust that on the fly. This projection for this year is based off of the number of games that are happening at the stadium and those sorts of things to reflect what we believe the actual expenditures and expense. And
now that we have a trend line. That's why we set it. We reset the structure too. Like the Liberty Bowl used to, it brought in money and it could go anywhere. The whole point was to make itself, it's kind of its own self-sustaining. Yeah.
I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we claiming we need $3 million for
It's a journal entry. It's an accounting feature.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could be used later then. Okay.
We'll never see it.
Yeah. It's when I say it's a journal entry, it's an accounting cleanup more than it's a cash. There's no $3 million. It's all. Yeah, exactly. It's an accounting income more than a cash flow change, so to speak. I'm trying to think about the best way. Yeah.
And we actually get from them a monthly log of receipts from the games and their expenses paid out to vendors. They're using an account at First Tennessee or First Horizon. There you go. That is a City of Memphis account. It is separate from the general fund accounts, but they are the authorized. Like at any point, we can go and pull a receipt, but we get monthly journal entries from them, which are then reflected in our books. But at no point do we write them a check or do they write us a check.
But you included in your budget.
Yes, ma'am, to show that it is both an expense and a revenue.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Let's keep going.
Okay, and if we go down to, again, the year-over-year breakdown of things.
Did you
Yes,
finish
ma'am.
recreation before you get going?
We can get into recreation if you'd like. So recreation, for the longest time, we called our community centers rec, which didn't make a ton of sense. Recreation in our world is athletics, aquatics, and health and wellness.
All right, can we put a pin in that? Because I think that's going to be a bigger. I think that's going to be a bigger one later.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it from this side.
It seems like it's a non-controversial topic.
Yeah.
So revenue discussions. This gives you a breakdown of where the money comes from. And again, there are two lines in here which are, there's one line in here which is shared, concessions. And that means concessions at the golf courses or concessions at the Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. Everything else is golf cart fees is obviously the rental fees that we get from the 7 golf courses, pro shop sales, the huge amount of money that comes in from people buying golf balls and towels from the pro shops. And then very minimal income coming from softball, basketball, ball field permits, class fees, the rental fees. The reason that number is so large is the stadium. That is another shared line. We book revenue from people renting the community centers for repasses, weddings, funerals, whatever, and also the money that is paid by the University of Memphis, the Southern Heritage Classic, the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, and the USFL, all book into that similar line. And then rent of land, we actually have a couple cell phone towers. And then outside revenue comes in the form that's mostly there's two things that make that up. One, for the longest time, we were paid by Shelby County to use our facilities as voting locations. And the other is money received for naming rights at the stadium. Those are small. And then this is sort of a breakdown. Parking, again, we're forecasting more parking going on there. Golf continues to grow year over year since the pandemic. And at some point, I think we'll hit a plateau, but I've been saying that for 2 years now. So charges for service, again, these are all fairly small revenue sources if you have specific questions about it. But again, we try not to be a model that is sustained off of revenue. At some point, we may change that model, but for now, we're a service center. All right, this is our authorized complement. Not a whole lot of changes here. Again, other than shifting folks as they attrit over at the stadium or at Mosh to see if we have a space for them, which you'll see there. The change again, a few more employees have switched over to Mosh. And we're also down at the Botanic Gardens to very few city employees. I would imagine at some point we'll have a similar conversation with the Botanic Gardens about going to a straight management fee scenario. Here's the breakdown of our 224. Again, not a ton of vacancies, which is nice. I would have expected more at this time of year in park operations, but we have a really dedicated HR team to making sure that we're keeping folks. And in centers, it's a tough job. You're working 12 to 8, a lot of weekends, and so we see, and making $48,000 a year as a community center director, which is something at some point we need to address. But we're working on it. Materials and supply expenditures, again, the bulk of that is going to be miscellaneous professional services at the stadium. But again, because we contract out so much of our landscaping, we contract out tree crews a lot of times to take care of damaged trees and things like that. You'll see that makes up a healthy chunk. Plus, that is also where we put the management fees. So when we're writing a big check to the zoo, when we're writing a big check to the Botanic Gardens, the Brooks, whomever, that's coming out of miscellaneous professional services. And again, here is a breakdown of those professional services. You can see a good chunk of that is at the stadium, but then the Brooks, Mosh, Tennis Memphis, the Zoological Society, the Botanic Gardens Foundation, the Overton Park Conservancy, the Woodruff Fontaine House, and then $2.4 million in various professional services spread across the 7 legal levels that we have. Our MWBE participation is, I feel like we are headed in the right direction. I think we do a good job, but our goal is always to work with partners and find more groups out there. We're at 45% combined, 45.6% combined, non-certified and certified. And again, I think it's a testament to the team constantly going back to OBDC and saying, help us find somebody.
All righty.
That is the operating.
Let me put you in the queue. As one may expect, we've got a murderer's row of a lineup here. Leading off, Vice Chairman Smiley.
Thank you, Chairman Carlisle. Quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
My notes are pretty awful. My handwriting's bad. So I think we had a conversation at some point talking about piloting a program, a basketball program.
Yes, sir.
How much would that cost your department?
We actually have it scheduled to pilot in this year's budget because of the increase in part-time salaries. We think we're going to be able to run an evening basketball league for young adults and teenagers.
What particular location in terms of community center?
I'm gonna look to my
pass
buddy,
it off.
Cleo behind here.
A good point guard knows how to pass.
And Cleo was decent. I mean, he's a terrible jumper.
Okay.
Yeah, one more time, Cleo.
Ed Rice, Hickory Hill, Davis, Orange Mound,
yes,
and the time in which those games would take place. That's what I like. That's what I like to hear. Keep going. You telling me stuff I like to hear.
Nighttime, Tuesdays and
All right, so also another question before I add things to my wish list, Councilman Carlisle.
Yes, sir.
Where can I find, there's a particular program that I have affinity for, Teen Fest. Where can I find that in the budget? Like what particular line item would I?
So that would be underneath Play Your Park. They're the group that are running that. Most of the outside of the programming that takes place outside of the community center that's not athletics, aquatics, or health and wellness is going to be Play Your Park.
How much funding was allocated toward Teen Fest this year?
The other deputy?
Hey, deputies.
$35,000.
So it's $35,000 for that. And then was there any funds particularly used for advertising? Because when we spend what I would consider a considerable amount of money on a particular event, concert, program, we should be advertising. Was there funding allocated for advertising this particular program?
So that wouldn't be our division. That would be a conversation with communications. We typically will partner with them to do unearned media. We spend
what
quite
about
a
earned?
time.
I mean,
So
unearned media meaning you're paying.
Do what you're paying for.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did quite a bit of earned media, but I don't know off the top of my head how much was spent on unearned media.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. So this is $35,000. I think there was a resolution by this body. Where did the $35,000 come from?
The $35,000 came from our operating budget. A decision was made after evaluating the funding source that we actually could absorb that cost inside of our budget.
Okay, so I think the resolution from council requested it come from unassigned fund balance because I think the council wanted your budget to stay as is. I think colleagues, what happened when we passed the resolution, I think it was unanimous, passed a resolution to add more funding for Teen Fest. The council, within its knowledge and our staff, believed that the money should come out of unassigned fund balance. What ended up happening was the money did not come out of unassigned fund balance like council requested. The administration took funding from the existing budget from parks to put forth this. And I think if we want to be able to expand parks, we need to keep that in mind. And if we don't fix it now, I'm happy your mic's off, but you're absolutely correct. Okay, so all right, so $35,000 for this, and then in the with the basketball league itself, how much do we have allocated for that in terms of funding? Because I'm assuming we were paying personnel expense, then
there'll be game officials.
referees. So could you talk about the pilot program, the basketball pilot
Clint,
program?
you want to just come up here?
Come on, buddy.
Come on now.
Seat's awfully warm.
Nick's ready to get out of there.
The pilot is.
Give us your just name and title.
I'm sorry, Cleo Griffin, Deputy Director
I
Parks.
think we know you.
I think
2599. The pilot is trying to target that middle teenage to young adult crowd. And so we think that offering this at 4 sites is a good start. If there's more demand, we'll spread it out. I'm sure Gaston would be of interest to you. But we think that that'll be a good complement to the Family Fun Nights, in which we also do basketball. That wasn't as popular, but we think it was likely because it wasn't established as a league, and so it wasn't progressive, and so.
What does this cost the city? Like it's not on. What does this cost the city in terms of personnel, materials, and supplies, and any other miscellaneous charges? Is there a total budget for this?
It's actually surprisingly not that expensive. The staff is already baked in. They are full-time staff. We've got to pay for game officials, of course. A lot of the supplies, they have to be renewed over time, but that's not necessarily an annual endeavor. And so you're talking about game officials. We get a lot of volunteers, or at least we try to run scoreboard, coaches and things of that nature. So it's actually not that expensive of an endeavor.
Nick's been doing this for a minute. So the reason that I'm asking for a number, at some point I'm gonna tell you what my wish list is once I start jotting some more information down.
Don't you guys can throw an order
Yeah.
of magnitude out there.
It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000, if I had to guess.
That's all he's asking for.
There we go. All right, and advertise is not your department. That's me, Colin, Director Fouché.
I would say that, but I would also tell you that like what we have found since we started doing our community engagement is that targeting our social media, which has grown something like 250% since we started doing it in-house, and developed our own dedicated website, which is where the registration for all this will take place too. Like, it's a pretty big driver of things. And again, I don't know how much we spent, but we sold out the event over at the Botanic Gardens. When I say sold out, it's free, but
I've heard that. So I was, the video he's talking about is Teen Fest.
Yeah.
I sent it out to a few people and I said, feel free to send this to all your kids, your friends. And they sent me a very angry face that sold out. I don't know if I'm happy or mad about that.
I feel like that describes most of our conversations. I don't know whether you're happy or mad. So
yeah, that sounds about accurate.
Now you know how we.
Yeah, but
you never know.
Council Smiley, for what it's worth, I mean, I hear you, but like, there's a lot of events that it takes a minute for them to like pick up steam and become kind of part of the annual show up thing for. So, like Memphis, the first time we didn't get out there, and then the second, third time finally kind of made its way. But your point's taken.
And in terms of, so I know we had a conversation about, it may have been Shandell. I'm getting you confused with Shandell. I'm so sorry, Shandell.
I feel bad for Chief Ryan.
I was having a conversation.
A lot of fires. Like, I'm gonna sit
the wrong seat. I was having a conversation with Chief Ryan, and I was asking about community centers and the timeline in terms of staying open and closed. And I think it was a general consensus thought among many of us that all the community centers stayed open the entire summer for their regular time. Could you just talk about that?
Yeah, no,
and how the impact of the budget, the reason that some community centers close earlier than they normally do during regular.
So really, since COVID, we have established a policy where, in order to preserve both the staff and the building, all except for 7 locations close Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock, or actually it's after the last kid gets picked up. And the reason for doing that was a couple of things. One, if you were to go in and audit the programming that takes place after a full day of community center activities for day camp, you're going to find that it's minimal, both because it's difficult on staff to program in that last 3 hours between 5 and 8 p.m., and the community probably don't have a lot of interest in kind of navigating past parents picking up kids to go into a 2 or 3 hour program. And so from that standpoint, what we found was that it was much more beneficial at what we call the regional sites, which is 1 per council district, to really focus on programming those 8 to 8 Monday through Friday, and then normal hours on Saturdays. And all the community centers, with the exception of the community center that hosts the family fun night on Friday night, are open normal hours on Saturday throughout the summer.
That's 8 to 5.
And no, it's 10 to, what is it? What's the hours on Saturdays? 9 to 5. 9 to 5.
I mean, that's all for me. I'm gonna play around with my notes and have a wish list.
So I heard that.
Yeah.
So 9 to 5 on Saturdays in the summer.
On Saturdays at all community centers.
Okay.
Year round. No. So we have a mixture of community centers. Most of our community centers are open 12 to 8, Monday through Friday. Regional sites are open 8 to 8, year round, Monday through Friday. And that's 1 per council district. Regional sites, because again, it's difficult. It would be very difficult to add 4 hours of programming at the 16 non-regional sites 5 days a week.
So
8 to 8 is, and most cities do not do
no,
that.
I understand. Most cities don't have a youth crime issue like we do, and I got you.
But during the week, being open 8 to 12 doesn't help.
No, I
kids.
got it.
Yeah.
Look, you see, I hear you. You guys have the data of how many
Yeah.
bodies are coming in and not. I mean, I got you. I think there some of this has to be data driven, and the term's subjective. And Nick, I mean,
yeah,
I think every person on this body respects the work that you and your department do, truly. But what are the odds?
9 to 5.
I think difficulty for us means either it's a staffing problem or it's a resource problem.
Mm-hmm.
We can cure the resource problem if you can cure the staffing problem.
And I think that actually it was interesting. I think she did a really good job of it. But Director Pugh, when she was talking about how difficult those ships are to move, and she's talking about that at Animal Service, which is a much smaller ship than ours. I would say that I agree with you long term. I think we should explore more full-time staffing in community centers. But that takes time to hire the right people, have the right wage scales to do it.
Yeah, sure. Look, and if I'm topping out at 47 and I'm took that job at 25 or 26 and I get to 32 and I'm looking around and I'm starting to figure out having a kid and getting married, I got it. All right, JB, sorry.
So, this is a number question. How much money does it cost your department to keep a community center open from, I guess, instead of closing it at 5, opening it to 8 o'clock? How much additional money are we talking?
We did the analysis on this.
Well, if you guys can just get us that.
Yeah, I can get that to you.
I can assure you it's going to come back and wrap up. Vice Chairman Smiley.
We'll work to get you those numbers. I will tell you, though, that it's probably 50-50 resource and ability to hire.
But the question that's been brought up, and I think Jonesy was brought it up before, which is, one, you got to have some adults in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't just, but trying to find, we've got employ, which is a really unique program for people that are pursuing, different sectors of what we would consider probably, more traditional white collar business deals, right? You've got volunteer jobs, you've got lifeguards, so you start to look at your infrastructure and you start to look at the older models that we moved away from. And a lot of the reasons we moved away from is, one, the world changes, but really it was funding structures. So, if I need to run, let's call it a day camp, summer camp, an evening hours camp, I only need 1 or 2 responsible adults, and I can have, 5 to 10, 16 to 18-year-olds. Now, can you find them? I don't know, but it seemingly there seems to be a possible path forward. So anyway, it's just hard to sit here, and I know, JB, I'm sorry, but it's just hard to sit here and talk about we need things for our youth to do, and then we, the city, don't have our community centers open at night. And I know we're saying, well, it's because they're not coming. But in reality, until you create the habit of getting there, like this is what we do on Saturday nights. Like people used to go roller skate on Saturday nights, or they used to go to Lindenwood Christian Church on Friday nights. Like that's what they used to do, right? So I think that's where I think I'm hearing some of my colleagues, but I don't want to belabor the point. Sorry if you're.
I think in terms of what I've been hearing and what Director Walker shared and what Chief Ryan shared. I think this council, we always talk about, at-risk youth, juveniles who are committing crime. I think we have a duty, or it's incumbent upon us to do what we're supposed to do, which is address the resource problem. And my very first conversation with Director Walker was a very different one when I was councilman-elect, and he was off and he was opened up a community center and he was able to get it done. The reason I'm bringing that up is I think if we provide resources, and I think it's clear that we need more resources in this particular department. I think Director Walker will create programming, and then it's up to us and communications to tell the community there's programming in our community centers. We need to keep these community centers open. We need to provide this particular department with more resources, because I don't think the resources this department has is sufficient for the type of issues we have with juvenile crime in the city. Councilman Jones says this all the time. We may not be in the education business, but we are in the business of children. We need to be doing more. And my wish list when it comes time will be significantly increasing the funding to the parks. And put it on, we have to take the responsibility off the council and put it on the administration to come back with programs that would justify us keeping it open. And I believe Director Walker will get it done. And Chief Ryan, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, JB's right. I think that's a show of faith in what you guys are capable of in your teams.
No pressure.
None. What at all? What are you talking about?
Well, look, I mean, you think about the council grant program, we're throwing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars at organizations that predominantly handle youth on things we could do. All right, Councilwoman Johnson.
May I respond really quickly?
Sure.
Chandel Ryan, Chief Operating Officer for the City of Memphis. I would like at some point for Director Walker to be able to talk about how many summer night lights that is being planned as a part of this budget, how many additional kids we will be targeting as a part of the summer camps, because we've expanded both of those programs. And I know you've already talked about the pilot, but I just want to put that on everybody's radar.
Yeah,
those have been expanded as well.
And I think that's great. And that was one of Strickland's big early things that he did was summer night lights, and he even campaigned his second election on it. We're saying, let's do summer night lights every night. I mean, that's the kicker. Like, we agree. We want to expand that to a more full-time basis, or at least know what it costs. So point taken, all the information we can get in the data would be great. And again, I think it's good because we've got some groups that people want to give more money to, but they don't want to because they don't trust the director or the administration of it. And you've got a group where people are saying, we think you're doing a great job and we trust that you know how to use this money. So,
and just a reminder,
yeah.
Summer camp, free food. I mean, that didn't used to be, summer is free food and it's free. So, tell everybody.
You can be in a much more difficult situation where council members are contemplating taking money from your budget.
If you see this face, it is just because we're at the end of budget process, in the middle of budget process. It is not because I'm not appreciative of the investment that council has made in us. I mean, and the administration. To the point that Chief Ryan is making. Yes, we did do Friday, Safe Summers on Fridays. We've doubled that for this year. So it is, we have taken it from 4 to 7. Additionally, we have not only made summer camp safer because we've lowered the ratios between faculty and students, but we have also increased the capacity. So there are things that we are doing. I agree with you. I want to do more. I mean, I think we can do more. I think when we invest in our staff, we invest in our kids. So I'm in complete agreement with you on that.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm not ready. It's just that I totally agree with everything that's been said. We've said this from day one, that we have 100,000 kids hitting the streets once the school closes. And we need to be able to say how many of those 100,000 did we actually touch? And we were told that the Park Commission would be one group that would be able to tell us that number. So I think that's important that you can tell us how many are going to enjoy the community centers, how many are going to enjoy the swimming pools, how many going to the library. Whatever the city is offering, we need to know what that number is and what's lacking. Now, I know you said you're open from 9 to 5. Maybe we could do it as a pilot and open from 9 to 6. It's hard enough for the parents, I guess, to get the kids there, but I know they're running like everything to get there by 5 o'clock because a lot of people get off of work at 5 o'clock.
What's the youngest age
we would
you
leave
take?
it open to 6.
What's the youngest age you take?
It's 5.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, that alone right there. I mean, if I'm dropping my 5-6-year-old kid off, 9 o'clock is tough.
Well, that's the hours on Saturdays. For the Monday through Friday for summer camp, it's 8 until the parent gets the last kid.
5.
Well, so we say 5 because if we say 6, then it'll be 7.
Well, let's say 5:30.
No. We say 5, and we keep the kids until the parents show up. But again, the term habitual line stepper is a great way of describing parents because myself included, I pull up to get my kid at the exact last minute that I can.
Okay. So I'm not going to hear from any parents that saying y'all are giving them grief for showing up at 5:30.
So this isn't, this, again, remember, because we're in a non-revenue situation. When I am 10 minutes late picking my kid up,
We ain't
there is a
talking
hefty
about you.
charge. No,
We're
no,
not
I agree with
talking
you.
about
But I'm
you. We're
saying,
talking
we
about the
have to be
average
respectful to staff.
person.
I know.
And we're talking about, again, providing a service.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
we're trying to say, what can we do different that will make a difference in the setting that we're in, okay? And we have to change. If we keep on doing it the same way, nothing is going to ever change. And I'm not saying you open them all up to 6, but you may be able to pick so many that you said, let's try 6 here. Does that make a difference in the way, the students or the kids behave there? So those were my suggestions. That please give us a number of kids that you're going to be able to reach, along with maybe considering adjusting the time in some neighborhoods, wherever you think it would be beneficial to you.
Certainly. So we took a look at the increase that we looked at this summer, and the additional expansion of the programming. We anticipate being able to touch an additional 35,000 kids this summer.
So what is the total number you think you're going to be touching? If that's
It's going to be somewhere in that 70 to 100,000. So if you take our normal programming in the community centers, the pools, et cetera, you take that number, and it's again normally in that 35,000 range. And our hope is that we can reach up to 35,000 more kids, which tells me it's going to be somewhere between 50 and 70,000 kids.
Do you have a registry of kids to participate?
So we implemented a system last year for the first time where we did registration for all of our activities. And so we definitely have a registration of all the kids that participate in summer camp. We also have registration of all the kids that participate in athletics. We are adding more and more as the folks that just come into the community center. We're piloting that at a few sites this summer. By next year, we will have an accurate count of everybody that comes into our community centers. But again, it takes a while to ramp that up.
Y'all don't keep a register of whoever comes into
We have the
community
people that
center?
sign down, but we don't. So there's a sign-in sheet at every
Right.
community center. I do not have the staff to take that sign-in sheet and digitize it. We can't take it and put it into a computer.
So y'all don't have them just sign into a computer, just a sign-in piece of paper?
We started that process 2 years ago by buying the software. We implemented it live this last year, and this last summer camp was the first time that we had people digitally register for summer camp. Yeah.
Excuse me?
So what he's saying is they need they need a year or two to get a trend to get the database and the trend analysis going.
Okay. So when you come back, you'll be able to tell us where you're getting those projections from, the 70,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Be able to show us, okay. I thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Logan, then we're going to go Warren Canale and the chairman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested in deferred maintenance and safety, security, and again, the staff ratio, the ratio of staff. The community centers that have gates, who locks up the gate when it closes down at the very end to make sure that the centers that have gates, that they're all locked?
So the centers that have gates, when you're talking about the doors, or are you talking about the parking lots?
The parking lots.
We don't lock the parking lot gates.
So what type of measures are in place to make sure that people don't come on the lots and do a lot of crime? Because at Raleigh, there were people that have been shot after hours, a number of people. And then there's a lot of crime and things that happen after hours. So when you wake up and you hear that someone was shot at the community center, they don't say that it was after hours, but there is a gate there, but it's never locked, and it would keep people from driving on the lot. Is there a reason why they don't lock that gate?
Yeah, we can evaluate that. And again, I don't know it off the top of my head. There's a limited number that have cattle gates. Most of them, there's no mechanism at all. But as it relates to Raleigh, we could definitely evaluate.
Okay, because I would like to, that was one of the things that was a concern of,
Yes, ma'am.
Some of the parents there, that there is a gate, but there's no park ranger coming by to lock it in. I think they're supposed to. The second thing is, what security do you have at the park? Not the park, the community centers.
We have no security at the community centers. We don't have hired security, no, ma'am.
So is that this summer, we're increasing, we're trying to get all the kids to go to the park, to the community center. But is there a safety plan? There's nothing that we have in terms of security or safety.
We have safety plans and we have cooperation with MPD to provide assistance, but
How does that work out?
so traditionally we've never, at least in recent history, had armed security or any dedicated security at any of our community centers.
And I'm not saying, militia. I'm just asking, is there any type of
So
security?
truthfully, and hopefully this doesn't.
And it could be undercover.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, we have a hard enough time having staff. Like, so our resources have been to make sure we have people to program the space and monitor the kids. We've never had the funding that allowed us to have security on top of that. We could, but it would be at the expense of the programming that y'all are asking for.
So does MPD or Shelby County Sheriffs or anybody, have you all talked to them about any type of support for or driving around, patrolling? Is there going to be directed patrolling at all? Because it's a lot of kids. You're trying to get 100,000 kids into the centers, and we definitely want to do that. But definitely want to keep them safe. And I know the ones in my district are back off into the woods, and it's dark, and the way you come up on the lot, it's like one way in, one way out. People are blocking the parking lots, and it's full of smell of weed, and it's just a lot of issues that I feel makes it unsafe. So a lot of times people park at the door. So if you're trying to get by, it's blocked. So if there's an emergency, it's going to be mass chaos trying to get out of there or trying to get your child picked up, because people park at the door. And there's no one there to say you can't park there or anything like that.
I think that's,
and I'm
to
not
your point,
saying that
there's
to
not
you.
security staff. We have community center directors, many of whom have been at those facilities for 10, 20 years, who in many cases live across the street from the community center. And through neighborhood connections, they handle a lot of that internally. I agree with you that I've stressed partnering with MPD, and particularly situations where there have been problems, directed patrols are as easy as having a conversation with the watch commander at that precinct. And they have been very great about that. The larger conversation about security in our community centers, I've talked with Director McCloy about her scenario at the libraries, and I think some sort of hybrid model where we have the ability to contract when necessary, I think it's something we're looking at, but we don't have it today.
Okay, I do think that is very important to look into this, and this is I'm not,
No.
directing this to
And
you.
if I'm just a little,
Right.
a little frazzled.
And because
but
you
you're
are,
good.
you're doing an amazing job in terms of programming, in terms of being innovative. But I've always been concerned when I go, because even on the basketball court, there, which is right next to them, you got little bitty kids next to grown men, and they're out there arguing, and people are sitting in the cars. You don't know what they're doing, and the tinted windows, and it's glass everywhere. So I am very concerned about the deferred maintenance, the cleanliness, and as we're adding to the programming, there are some of them that aren't up to, they're not renovated, all of them, and so they still, kind of like dingy and dark, and so I definitely am wanting to see that improved. And this is nothing that I have, nothing new. I've shared that you all, my heartbeat in terms of the ones in my district. Just making certain that the children that are coming are going to be in a healthy environment. And like I said, we're doing great and making strides in the programming, but that deferred maintenance, the safety and security, and then the management, because the like you said, the managers are busy making sure everything is going right and everybody's signing in and everybody's doing what they're supposed to. If there's a game in there, and then you got majorettes back here, they got to make sure everybody's, where they're supposed to be. They cannot be outside. Yeah. They cannot police the parking lots. And there's a lot that goes on. Kids are dropped off, but because there are people parking, they got to run in alone, and, abduction. And so I would love for us to spend some time discussing, in addition to improving the programming, let's have a conversation and a deeper dive about the safety and security and deferred maintenance. Something as simple as window cleaning and, painting the front doors and making sure that the entryways into all of the older facilities are up to par. But again, I appreciate all of the innovation and things that we're doing. I really see an improvement over years in the programming and the morale. I just want to continue on. Iron sharpens iron, just to get, continue on in that vein.
There is one the piece of security, and I can't believe I completely forgot this. Starting last year, and we'll do it again this summer, at some of the outdoor pools where we're concerned about safety issues, there will be armed security at those locations. Because we had a couple incidents last year where lifeguards didn't want to come back unless we had it.
So we can find out which ones. We can find. I'll just get with you to find. I'll get with you about the ones in my district just to make sure that I know.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's another thing. When I talk about deferred maintenance, or when I talk about staffing, I've also shared with you all about the importance of having a maintenance plan. Like, we'll have a new facility, but don't have the maintenance or hadn't thought it all the way through. And I know it's
Chief Ford, do you want to touch on that?
I know that it's a heavy lift to even get things done, so I appreciate that. But quickly, in some communities, those new facilities end up looking real old. Because I was at one of them at an event this past weekend, and kids were everywhere unattended, and it was just like, oh my God, this is a brand new facility. So it might have to be some things that are considered where you have. There was one person at the desk, but there were probably 500 people on campus, and kids unattended, and they were breaking stuff. So just want to make sure that those things are thought about. So if you're thinking about innovation, Director Walker, I know it's hard for you to be thinking about the other things. So this is more so to administration to make certain that we walk it all out as we get these 100,000 children and their families in. That is key for me, and I know in my district. So I yield back, Sheriff. We could add that to the list.
Councilman Warren, remember, we haven't gone through CIP, which is actually my fault. We probably should have done that first. And then when we get to CIP, I'm going to let Nick and Director Walker and Chief Ford address a lot of that with something that is administration-wide for what basically is a capital operating plan, so to speak. Dr. Warren.
Yeah, mine was a CIP question.
Perfect. All right, so let's get.
I'm going to give the CIP as well.
Smiley, well, yeah. However she puts you down, so that's how you go. Councilman Canali.
I'm good, Chairman. I forgot my question.
Chairman Jones is left the room. If he comes back, he can grab. Well, he can. Don't run, Martavius. There he is. I was going to say, I get you in CIP. All right, Chairman Jones.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Have a couple of questions. So, Mr. Johnson, this goes back to your question about the zoo. So, looking at the expense trending detail, and this just may be something I don't recall, on page 36 of 72, in 2022, the funding amount for miscellaneous services and charges for the zoo, I'm looking at legal level S150600, went from $1.2 million to $2.9 million. And so what that has done, and so the funding request for this year is building off of that. So I'm trying to recall what accounted for that 1.75 million increase, and that seems to be ongoing.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the bulk of the increase at the zoo has been because of their water bill. And it is because it has gone up exponentially over a matter of time. And some of that is better metering by our friends over at MLGW, and some of that is increased amenities and those sorts of things. And there was no cap put on our contribution to their sewage fees. No, surprisingly, because they have a recirculating system. So they're not dumping a ton of water. It is just because, again, over time, we didn't put a cap on it when we created their management agreement 25, 30 years ago. And so it has just gone up exponentially over time.
Can you double check that? Because we're looking, that's 100% increase.
Mm-hmm.
And so like going
So
up
what it really reminds me of is the solid waste fee thing, where because budget adjustments are done throughout the year, we've redlined and blacklined money to cover for it. And then finally, Parks just kind of tapped out and said, guys, you're going to have to make the budget reflect what we're actually spending.
Okay. So what is, and a lot of the questions that I have are coming from the expense trending detail book. What is Parks Sports Centers?
Is that the stadium? That's the stadium.
Oh, okay, that is the stadium. Okay. So, there was the M&S. And something that, throughout this process is a bit concerning to me is when we have allocations this year that are less than they were in 2019. So there was one item under M&S that was that is currently 3.4 million now, but in 2019 it was 4 million. So because it's still general in nature, I can't really tell what that is. So that's just one.
Yeah, if you'll send that to me,
Okay.
we'll have that researched by the staff. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay, and then parks, recreation centers.
I'm sorry, Councilman. Your question?
Yeah, park recreation centers. What does that include?
Well, so if you're looking at one of the older ones, that would have been community centers and senior centers. And I mean, that's still what they are.
Okay, so, yeah, so what I'm looking at is, I guess I'm getting down to the legal level.
Okay, yes, sir. That's the legal level covers community centers and senior centers.
Okay, so.
Nope. Rec centers? No. He said recreation centers. He's using the old name. We're good. Sorry, continue. So, and again, I apologize, Councilman, but it used to be called recreation centers, and then we created a recreation legal level and a centers level, so that athletics, aquatics, and health and wellness is called recreation, and senior centers and community centers are called centers. It just made life easier.
Okay, and see, I go back, I go back again to, in 2019, part-time salaries were $2 million, but in this current fiscal year, we're down to 1.2.
I believe at that point, summer camp was underneath recreation centers.
Okay.
And it transitioned into a separate line item, which is summer camps.
Okay. Thank you for those. How many community centers do we have altogether?
So we have 24 community centers, 5 senior centers, and a center for the developmentally disabled.
Okay, so the number that I'm working with here is
30.
24.
Oh, okay.
Particularly talking about, and I'm going
Community
back
centers,
to
24.
going back to youth in this summer. School is out May 26th. June is going to have 5 Fridays. July is going to have 4. So if we're looking at we're looking at 19 different days. Well, no, I'm sorry, 18 different days if we're looking at Friday, Saturday for those, just from when school is out to that last weekend in July. What do we have to do? Because as we talked about as Budget Chair Carlisle has emphasized, we can't look at things in a conventional way with the issues that we have right now. And going back to Summer Night Lights a couple of iterations ago, pre-COVID, we were piloting it then. I think that I was hopeful that we would be at a level now, and still we're coming off of COVID, where we can be looking at these programming citywide at these 24 centers, not at just 7 to do so, particularly just the summer. Just the summer, Friday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday. I was hoping that's how we need to provide something along those lines, and what the resources are that we can provide to do that. We don't know what that is in order to do so.
Okay, so from personal experience, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this summer we've expanded the number of nights, because last year we did 4, and this summer we're doing 7. Additionally, what we found was that in 2019, I think it was 2018, when I was still the deputy, we tried multiple locations on one night. And what we found was that our uptake and our outreach increased when we focused the locations, promoted it as such, and drew all of our resources there, because it created much more of a carnival environment rather than a slightly nicer than what's normally going on at that community center on a Friday night environment. And it allowed us to do more creative things and create a better experience for everybody involved. I will tell you truthfully, so 901 Block participates in everything, whether it's at a church or it's with us or whatever. Their feedback was that a lot of times their officers I think we actually did 3 locations some nights, would be at the smaller events that weren't as well attended, and they were waiting to come over to the large event because they knew that the people would be coming with them. Like the kids and the families would be traveling over to that site. And so again, I can understand the inclination and the motivation to say, well, we should have it at all 24. But what I would personally say is that you're going to dilute the product in doing that and take away some of the excitement that you get. If you've been to any of our Friday night programming, it's amazing. There are so many kids, there are so many families. And I think that continuing to grow it in that model is really the best path forward on that. And supporting it with resources and adding to it is what we did, because we heard that charge. So I'm sure this feels a little anticlimactic to you, because we're coming to you and saying, we heard you and we made our programming do that. But that's the case. Like, we knew coming into this budget season that we needed to add some things. So we've done some of that. Can we do more? Definitely. But we are also
What's keeping you from doing more?
There's 2 things. One, you can't do it in a month.
Okay.
If you give me the money today, I don't know that I can turn it around, because we've got to get contracts in place, we have to hire people, and we have to promote it. And so, again, I think we can add some, which is what we've done, and then be ready for next year to add even more, because I think iteratively is our best path forward.
But Ms. Walker, this is deja vu all over again, because I was asking you to
Which
do
is why
this.
we've increased the programming.
I know, but I'm asking you, last year, I was hoping that we'd be at the point where we were ramping up. Colleagues, do y'all remember my saying this for last year? So we're at this point this year. What do we have to do? Because this budget that we're approving is going to include June as a fiscal year for next year. And so is most of your increase this year, is that talking about this summer?
So we are increasing, and that is one of the dilemmas. You're absolutely right. Summer camp is 2 fiscal years every year.
Right.
It is June, and then it is July. But our intention, our increase in the programming, both at the community centers, increasing the enrollment at the community centers for summer camp, and increasing the programming for Friday nights, is spread over both of those. And so, again, if you were to make an increase in this year's budget, yes, some of that would hit June of next year. That's just the dilemma, is that if you increase, really, I don't see that money until the second half of the summer. But this administration has given us resources, reallocated resources, to make sure that the haves match. So we are going to be able to increase programming for June and July.
For June to July of this year? Yes, sir. Okay, so colleagues, we should not be operating where we are hamstringing the next administration, because part of next summer is going to be a new administration. And so, Mr. Walker, hopefully you will be the director, because you are a great director. I just think, and this is just my personal opinion, you have been hamstrung from a funding standpoint, and that funding standpoint has hamstrung expanding what we can do. I think about, we probably have friends and relatives, young teenagers, college students who come home, and you know, look, I understand. I'm looking at it from, I'm not the operational one. I'm not the one on the ground, but I just see, we get phone calls from kids saying, I need something to do this summer. And if we're looking at, if we could have expanded this, I probably can think about a dozen friends who have kids coming home this summer who would love to do something like this. And so my ask and my plea to you is, and I won't be here to say this year, but I hope those that will be here next year will remind of this conversation to say, hey, a year ago, Councilman Jones was talking about these teenagers who, I don't want us to be at a pilot phase again, because we haven't ramped it up. Colleagues, I want us to fund this year, so June and July will be taken care of next year. But the ask that we have is still just looking at, what are we going to do to get us through, and I almost say to get us through December. Sure. This is not, and I talk about a buzzword that I've had about this budget, an ambitious, bold, audacious budget for us, particularly yours, Mr. Walker, to do this.
Well, Councilman Jones, you're well within your right.
Well,
when it comes time to amend this budget, and I'm going to present a proposal to do it.
Okay. I just want to, can I clear up something? This budget does deal with July of next fiscal year and June of next fiscal year. I think there's a little bit of a confusion. So we have double the summer night lights. Yeah, so we've gone from well, it's almost double. We're going from 4 to 7. That's actually 8. Sorry, oh, 8. Okay, so we've doubled it, and it's going to be for the entire fiscal year. So we've done that, and we have expanded the amount of kids who can participate in the summer camps. You know, that's a free camp with free food. So we have done that as well. Just wanted to make sure to point that out.
Yeah, I guess, like I said, I appreciate, I don't want to sound that like I'm not appreciative of the work that you all do, but I just think that we as 13 council members and our community, we're just desperate. And that's the only word that I can think of. You know, I'm trying to throw everything at all these spaghetti strings at the wall, hoping that something sticks. You know, to address us, to get us through this summer and engage as many young people in what can be positive things as we can. It's just desperation.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's on the same page. I think the issue that we're having is, and I almost don't want to say this because then it means I have to go do more work, but it's like we're trying to always work within, quote, the parameters, right? Like we know that we have a 2% uptick on property taxes. We know that we have a debt policy that we have to work within. But the reality is that's and I mean this respectfully to the mayor, that is Mayor Strickland's parameters for which he wishes to operate, as if there is no other option. And the thing is, it's within the council's prerogative if we want to spend another $50 million, we can do that. It's just we have to go out to the public and say, this is the tax increase that is going to require that, and we have to suffer the consequences. And I think I was pretty clear early on, and I think there are at least seven other people that agree with me that at some point, in order to meet the needs of what we think our constituents wants, it's going to require that extraordinary move. And so I think we keep haggling over, well, we don't have this option, we don't have that option. And what we're saying is, and I don't know how many times we as a council can repeat it, and again, I say this as respectfully as possible, this option is on the table. We are going to provide more resources and more operating capital to meet standards and services that we think the city wants and warrants. The question is what are you going to do with them? And again, I say that very respectfully to Mayor Strickland. He's a two-term mayor. He's entitled to present the budget and the set of parameters that he wants his directors to present it in. And I know a lot of very hard work went in that, Chief Ford in particular. But our job is to say that we appreciate the budget you presented. We want more services, and we're willing to go out and put our necks on the line to provide you with the resources to do that.
For my colleagues who are up for election this year, to even float the idea of a tax increase, folks will say that is crazy as hell. But that's just how committed you all are to doing something different than what we've done. But, we can say we can increase this by 25 million, but you all know what to do with it. Y'all know where to put it. We don't. And so that goes back to what Councilman Morgan was asking the police director Monday. Where to put it? We don't know. What would you do with it? You all haven't provided that to us. We still have our hands, but we're going into this fight with our hands behind our backs because we don't, and blindly, because we don't have the information. We don't have what would you do with an additional $10 million, Mr. Walker? Let me put it, Yep. I don't know.
Well, again, I hope it comes across as respectful, because I think what the council is also saying is we feel, and look, we have, I don't know what's going to happen, especially on the appointments and all these things that happen when you've got a change in the CEO. But in reality, I think it's a compliment to the work that the administration does, that you've got a body that's saying, before you leave, we are trying to hand you cash to put it in a place, to get it set up, just in case you're not here in 6 months, because we have so much faith in that ability. I think that's a huge compliment. I really do.
But I think it's a bigger one to say that, Mr. Walker, I think you'll be here. And so I'm saying, I was excited about your budget, and, it was almost like, from a budgetary standpoint, you all just had to cram everything into you. You're trying to squeeze into the same jeans that you had in high school. Mr. Walker, so with this budget. But we don't know what to do with this extra funding. We wanted you all to come back with it, but you too. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
We've got, I think Councilwoman Logan had one quick question about the PALS program.
Microphone.
Councilwoman Logan.
Sorry, thank you. What do you all have to do, or what's the connection with PALS?
Very little. I mean, if I'm being honest, they permit fields from us at no cost, but they run their own programming. And in fact, they actually have a couple of their own fields. There's a field over by the Tillman Station that is operated by MPD. It's where they do a lot of their soccer and football out of. They do quite a bit over at Willow. There's an officer out of the Mount Moriah Station, Officer Smith, who runs a league. But for the most part, most of the police programming is generated and run by police officers, so there's not a ton of overlap.
Do we fund them?
The police has a pretty decent budget.
The police, I mean, it comes out of their budget?
It comes out of their budget.
Yeah, we don't have I'm sorry, I didn't answer that when you asked me. So we don't have a direct city grant, but council members do give they have received city council grant funding in the past.
Yeah, I know about the city council grant, but I didn't know if we gave them any money anywhere else. If they're on any line item or anywhere else with the police.
We'll send Chief Davis
Okay.
an email. I can't recall. I feel like when Director Rawlings was here, they might have been on in his budget.
Yeah, I thought so.
But I don't know if that's
We'll
still
have to ask them
ongoing.
that. But speaking to that, we have PAL, we have this basketball league you're doing. We also have the new opportunities at Liberty Park for the city to come in. How are we connecting all of these opportunities to show that there's a lot to do in the city other than what's at the parks with things that we're funding, these museums and things like that? I know Brooks is opening up and they have a lot of community space, but if we had a more comprehensive way of looking at what the city has for children, it might look like more. And the parks is, it's a lot of different things on here. I know Brooks has a huge community space that they're building. So just think about that.
The document that we handed out, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, that showed
booklet?
everything. Yes, that booklet that shows everything that's available for kids this summer.
Did it connect Liberty Park's opportunity with this basketball league and the other basketball leagues? So under sports, and recreation, you have all of these opportunities to go swimming, all of these opportunities to play on a basketball league, regardless of where it is, whatever we're paying for spending, if we could pull it all together and include it in that booklet so that it shows exactly where the dollars are going, because I don't think all of it is being reflected in here. But
Liberty Park is a little bit different. What's happening at the youth and sports complex, that is a whole different operating model. So no, it's not included in that because there's a different arrangement there, but it does include.
It doesn't include opportunities for Memphis citizens to go in and play free
With a fee, no, not
or
free.
league.
They do community programming. They actually have a scholarship model set up as well, but none of their programming is completely free. There's something funding it, either a foundation or it's a pay for play.
So I thought there was a time during the week that when there's no.
They do some stuff with Shelby County Schools and a couple other things like that. I would really recommend. It's probably not a terrible idea to have Antonio Perez, who's the general manager over there, come before y'all at
Honestly, we should probably go
yeah.
over there.
Yeah, no, and actually you take a tour of the facility.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm the landlord, so if you guys want that set up, just let me know.
Well,
And I do want to say
that's not what
it is not a community center. I want us to not think of it as a community center. They are an at-risk operator. So if they don't make money, then they lose money. It's more like Liberty, the Liberty Stadium, or like the FedEx Forum. It is different from
right, and I totally understand that, but I do know for certain that when you all were here talking about Liberty Park, we went at length to find out if there are any opportunities for youth in the city to have play at this facility at all, period. We talked about that before we voted on it. And it was my understanding that there would be some times that there were some intramural leagues or something that was that the case?
Yeah, I believe that's the case. And again, I would love, so Housing and Community Development set up that agreement.
Okay, so we need to talk to them about that.
That, or again, we can have Antonio and it's another Antonio Perez, walk you through what their community partnership program looks like. I will say selfishly, we have free athletics. We want to promote our stuff and we want to grow our leagues and grow our opportunities. I know that everyone wants to go to nonprofits and say, hey, they can do this. They're great. All it takes is a grant. Think of us as a grantee. We would love to do that program. We would love to expand. We have the facilities. We have the people. Give us a chance. And I think we've shown we'll do good stuff.
Oh, and I wasn't thinking about not.
No, I agree with you.
I'm just
that's
when you
my
say
primary
our,
focus.
I'm looking at our children, like the whole city, and what's available to the kids in the whole city. And I'm actually was saying that should complement, because I was looking at it from a city-owned thing, or we approved that with the knowledge that there would be intramural opportunities for just regular kids.
Yeah,
And
I think you're talking past each other. The difference is there are, but there's like the why. Like there are times where there's free play. Unfortunately, what he's saying is that they have intramural leagues, but there's a fee. But what he's asking is he wants Antonio to come in and tell you if they've got 100 participating athletes that are Memphis youth, how many of them are it's all fee based, but 75% of them may get their fee waived as a scholarship. And so he wants Antonio to come in and explain that program as a part of that.
no free opportunities, what you're saying.
No, there are free opportunities. And I
Okay.
believe they do
All
have
right.
some intramurals and stuff like that. And he can talk through all of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to pretend that I know all the details of his operation. I struggle with my own.
It's free in the sense that they charge a fee, the fee's then reimbursed by some sort of grant or their organization or whatever. So ultimately, for the kid, they're playing for free.
Well, as a body, we're talking about, we're putting a lot on here, but there are a number of things that are going on in the city that we can also, make certain that our citizens know about as well, that we have funded or that we have connection with.
Touche. All right, Councilwoman Johnson.
Well, thank you, Chair. I think, again, if they would just come back and give us a list of all of these potentials, how many youth are available. I just hear Chairman Jones' desire to make a change. There's a lot of things that's gone on this past year, issues that we had to address. We may not be able to control the police department, but Lord knows we should be able to do something about summer youth programs. Let's make this the best summer ever. And let's get the kids ready, get them motivated, and get them ready to go back to school next year to make a big difference. We're going to have to get together and deal with these children. So I'm just asking, just stay focused on doing what you're. I really think too that you'll get a lot of help from some of the teachers. If you paid them, summer salaries for 8 weeks, they'd be glad to come in and make that money for 8 weeks. And maybe that'll be a different attitude. The kids see the teachers in a different
You're optimistic.
perspective.
You're optimistic. Mental health recovery.
No, I'll also tell you though that a good number of our staff are teachers who work in the evenings and then switch over to full time for us during the summer.
Yeah.
She's not wrong.
Councilman Smiley.
So I guess one thing I would like to see, I think you stated is 24 community centers. So what I would like to see is a breakdown by community center of the programs available at each community center. I think that'll be helpful for a lot of the members here, so we can kind of determine, okay, this program's here.
I've already got it. MemphisParks.com.
Now you know.
I'm just telling you. No, I mean, I'll get you a list. I'll get you a list. But I'm saying seriously that.
But
I tell Pippi.
he wants to marry that up with the service centers, like the service center level, and just kind of look at that relationship again.
We have a very ambitious.
That or JB can spend every day in your office for a week.
We have a very, very ambitious wrap up
spreadsheet. It is
wrap up coming, and I need to take a look at it.
All right, and this is my fault. We should have gone in CIP and then did questions, so blame me. I guess let's just stay on the front page slide and then run down them because some of them.
I can give you the fast version.
Yeah, let's do the fast version.
Okay.
And if somebody's got a specific, Jeff left, but up there he is. So let's start with Wolf River Green White. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. No, so I will say that I do want to show you because there's pictures with most of these, and so pictures are pretty. The main driver at the top is the new Lester Community Center. We did a public presentation. Councilman Canale was over there the other night. This would the $5 million in FY24 would get us through a bulk of the construction. With the final of the construction finishing up in FY25, December of 24. And so for a total of $16 million on that project. Tennis major maintenance is an ongoing project that started about 5-6 years ago to resurface and redo every tennis court in the city of Memphis. This is a continuation of that project, ultimately wrapping up in 28. Yeah, roughly 28. Audubon Golf Course redesign. The bulk of the work will be done in July. However, there will be a little bit of work on the back end, which is why you see $1 million in FY25, but the grass will be growing this summer, Lord willing. We're playing golf there in May, June of next year. Wolf River Greenway Phase 6. This is part of the ongoing MOU with the Wolf River Greenway to help them finish that out. Lord willing, I cannot wait to one day be able to bike from the edge of Collierville all the way down to the to the city. Yep,
I
it's a
can't
big
wait
deal.
to think about buying a bike, to think about doing
Man,
that.
hey, listen, I'll give you one of my old ones. We'll figure it out. Lichterman Major Maintenance. This was a project that was started by my buddy Mike Flowers, who is the administrator over planning and development, to take a look at the needs of that facility. FY24 and 25 are wrapping up the A&E on that, and then the bulk of the work will be in 26 and 27 in order to take care of that facility, which is an amazing facility. Zoo Major Maintenance. This is another one of those perpetual programs where every year we give about $250,000 to the zoo to make major capital, or not major, but middle range capital repairs to their facilities. The park's cover line is Mike's Fix-It line. It is used for paving. It is used for repairs. It is used for sometimes small projects. The Brooks, I believe the $2 million proposed for FY25 is the city's sort of final contribution to the new Brooks Museum. The red zone opportunity, for anyone that's seen the building popping up over there on Park, just behind Melrose, this is the city's contribution. As a part of that process, the city will take from Mr. Edding's group a building that is next door to the Orange Mound Community Center that we are going to evaluate. We need some of the space where that building is. If you're looking at the front of the gym at the Orange Mound Community Center, there's a weird building to the left that was a nursing home for a while. We got to put a playground over there somewhere because as a part of the old Melrose redevelopment, we're losing the playground in the back. So either all that building goes, some of that building goes. But anyway, that's what we're doing. And then the Botanic Gardens infrastructure, I'm sure you've seen if you're driving down Park, the signs about rooted at Park and Cherry. They are doing a major capital campaign. Part of that, and the reason that Parks is investing, is that they're going to be building an educational greenhouse. And I've already talked with their executive director about the educational opportunities that'll have for kids in the Memphis Parks programs. So a little more detailed breakdown of the spend, et cetera. Rather than going through that, I'll just show you the pretty picture of the new Lester Community Center, which will be amazing.
Boy, let's hope that color scheme holds through time.
It is really cool, and I hope all the bells and whistles that are up there, some of which are adults right now, make it to the final construction.
Chief McGowan do the old value engineering before he got out of here.
He did a lot of it. We just get out there with some gravel. It's going to be a great building and a much needed. That is the third most popular community center, despite being the second oldest. Yeah, Walter Casey is amazing. Yep.
I mean, I learned how much.
The community picked the colors. That's the Binghamton Leicester school colors, and they're also a big fan of the LCC, Leicester Community Center up there at the top. Although someday I bet it has a different name. Okay, and so this is what an old tennis court looks like and a new tennis court looks like, which is a part of the process. Anybody that's been up to Raleigh, those are amazing tennis courts. Those are some of the most utilized in the city, even though, as you pointed out, it takes a minute to get there. This is the layout of the Audubon Golf Course. I saw Councilman Canale shiver a little bit, or Carlisle shiver a little bit. Flashbacks. PTSD. But this is what it's going to look like June of next year, which will be amazing. The dogs are going to be able to run around all they want over there in the bottom right-hand corner.
One of the things that I'll say that's really neat about this, when we talk about teaching the game and talking to guys like Willie Gregory, is in the summertime, you now have an opportunity to do a full tennis and golf camp where kids can be on campus without leaving and being on there.
Right here.
And then growing the game, having a driving range in the center of the city that's city-owned as opposed to just being able to go to putt-putt are things that we've never had before. And so it's going to be a really big opportunity. And then lastly, for the University of Memphis, it expands their entire, even though it's not their campus, when they are driving presidents of other universities and prospective athletes around, like they get to show this off as part of their Eastern Gateway, as part of their campus feel, along with Live at the Garden and the lake. And so it's a really big opportunity for us, economic development-wise.
What he's referring to is up here will be a walking short course that will be a nominal fee for adults like me who are trying to get better, but free for kids. We'll be able to just go up there, and it's walkable, hit out of sand traps, all that fun stuff. And then the Wolf River Greenway, this was the prettiest picture Mike could get. I'm going to give him grief about that on the ride back. But this is the connection, the system of maps that get you to 26 miles of Greenway when we're done.
But this gets you over to the levee too, that goes all the way north-south. Yeah,
Yep.
that thing's cool.
On this,
yes, sir.
how much is not done, proposed? I mean, how much is still to
So
be done?
I think everything that is white is, sorry, Mike.
White is not done.
White is not done. Orange is done. Yellow is under construction. $10 million from the state is actually going to go to, I think, a good section of the lower white.
Phase 13.
Yep. Yep. And some of them are incredible. Anytime you get the railroad involved, it's like twice as expensive and 4 times as long.
But 13 and 12, so 12B and 12A and 13?
Yeah. That's where the state money's going.
Well, city money combined with their $2 million grant from the state.
Should take care of that stretch.
And is that the area that's sort of underneath the interstate off of Austin P?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the spot where we can actually do a canoe business, you know, and actually do a combined thing in there.
Now, there's when this is all said and done, and then we start talking about the interconnected trails, which will get you from the neighborhoods over to it. I mean, I think we have a chance to go from being. There's a lot of people that bike in this city, but the ability to have interconnected off-road trails will convince people who don't bike to bike. And to me, that and aquatics are really 2 opportunities to change the health outcomes in this city. Okay.
I think it's a business opportunity.
Yeah,
for
that
a
as
ton
well.
of people
That as well.
to
That as
like
well.
be making money and you know, in tourism. But
And here is an overhead shot of Lichterman. Again, there's so many pretty pictures of that place, and this is what you got. And then zoo major maintenance. See, you got a decent picture of the zoo. That's everybody's walking up to the front with the flags. And then parks cover line. This is the kind of stuff we do. Fixing the playground surfaces. We got way too many benches and retaining walls that still look like that in the city. But Mike addresses those as he can, as often as he can. So I'm glad to see the cover line, which has been increased in the last year, and it's scheduled to be increased in 25 again, is huge. Again, I'm a neutral party in this process. So, and here is Botanic Gardens infrastructure. Anybody that's seen their new visitor center, think this, but an educational facility for tropical plants to expose kids to. There's a lot of really cool stuff that goes on there. I've personally got a membership. My daughter loves the heck out of that place, and I think it's a great organization. And actually, so if you go online and look at Rooted at Cherry and Southern, it has a breakdown of like the 6 things that they intend to do with this. This is part of a, I want to say, how many million?
If only we had a board member here.
If only we had a board member who's also a master gardener, hypothetically.
So full disclosure, I am on the board of the Memphis Botanic Gardens. It is I think we're at a 10 million, and but it's really all about education and youth education. And it's Rooted at Cherry. It's Rich Soil is the summer program that's on this summer. And it is really exciting. And you're absolutely right. I've been a member there forever. Took my daughter there and now my grandson there. And there's so much going on there. And so this is just a little piece with the infrastructure things that, I mean, we own it, but this is just the infrastructure piece that fits in with our GO bond structure.
If only we could trade them for the staff members.
I think we would lose on that one.
Yeah. All right, Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
In regards to the red zone, is this the only funding we ever provided this organization?
We're getting nods from over here, but
I believe so. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe yes.
Okay, that was my question. The other question I had is in regards to a wish list. I want this to be placed on a wish list. Yes, make it work now. there's a lot of opportunity for kids, and I'm really a pusher for tennis. So I want a wish list that we increase the number of courts at Bellevue Court in order to get more kids over there. I want it to be similar to what is happening in Whitehaven courts. We have indoor courts. I need 2 more indoor courts, and I want 4 more outdoor courts to make it equal. I do think we need to expand the use of tennis courts and bring kids in and let them know this is an opportunity. It's a great opportunity for scholarships that's not being utilized at the current time because not enough people getting involved. So on the wish list, I think I need about $1.2 million.
You're gonna need more than that. You're gonna be way more than that.
Can you make an explanation of
Because you're
how
trying
much?
to retrofit 2 indoor courts to an existing facility. So what I would recommend, and actually it's interesting because Councilwoman Logan and I had this conversation the other day about hypothetically the community center that rhymes with Bali. Is the
We got it.
community center. I got you.
We got it.
I'm tired, y'all. The Raleigh Community Center, like things like that, you need to actually do a feasibility study. You need to bring somebody in to say, what would it cost to do this? Because it's dangerous to guess. And so what I would recommend, and I told her at Raleigh, we're going to take in our A&E portion of the cover line this year, money to bring in an architect to do similar to what we did at Gaston. Go in, walk through the space, talk to the community center director, talk to the partners, find out what the needs are, and then build a realistic budget because it is dangerous. We've experienced this now with 3 community centers.
Yeah.
We go, here's enough money to do it. And then we get the initial SD cost estimates. We go, that's not enough money to do it. So what I would recommend is that we commission a study to do those things at Bellevue. And the study, truthfully, probably takes 6 weeks.
I'd broaden this.
I can get it done faster if that's what it takes. If you just need a number. But I think we're going to be in the ballpark.
I think it's going to be way more than $1.2 million.
I mean, we already have the land. We're talking about outside. We're talking about a frame building. We're not talking about.
I'm telling you, it's you'd be shocked at the price of concrete and
Well, that
labor.
may be a issue.
But what I would say is
we can get it done in less than that for an estimate.
What I would be interested in the feasibility study is, and Councilwoman knows her district. What I would be curious about the feasibility study is taking a holistic approach of identifying those areas. I mean, obviously we already have city land and those are probably the likely places, but if you're gonna start to look at a comprehensive approach to something like that, is figuring out where the best places to locate those courts are outside of Leftwich, right? Like where you would need, but in the near term, I'd be curious to get an order of magnitude. I know I'm on this one, I'm with Director Walker, 2 indoor courts with, even if it's a frame building.
Yeah, I would actually say you could probably, somebody like Brett Grinder that's built a bunch of them recently, you could probably go out.
Whole bunch.
Yeah, go out there and get some cost estimates on it. I don't know, but again, granted, it's a different thing. What she's talking about, actually, we want to make sure we get that right, and that's going to take some time. And so I apologize. I kind of convoluted the 2 of them.
Well, that's fine. I just needed to place on our wish list, and I'll come back with those cost estimates for you.
I can get them for you right now. All right, I've got, let's see, we had Warren went. Jeff, did you get all your questions out? I'm sorry if you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Smiley and then Logan.
Thank you for thinking of me, Councilman Carlisle. So, Councilwoman Jenna Swearings in Washington, and I really just want to say her whole name and get it right this first time. We attended a community meeting yesterday, and there was several people from the Magnolia Castelia neighborhood and on their wish list, and that means it's our wish list. They talked specifically, I think we, staff sent out a request for city-owned parcels. I think the ultimate goal for them in that particular neighborhood is they want to have a park in their neighborhood. And I don't know what it would take to build a park. And
again, it's going to sound like a broken record, but I think truthfully
commission
a study, like, so we haven't done these traditionally in parks. Again, what we've done is gone, hey, we think it'll cost about, and that's dangerous. So what I would really recommend, because we're actually doing this on another project to look at a potential parcel of land that might be used for athletics at some point. We want to get an idea of what would it cost to retrofit this space. I think we can definitely work with Carlton's office and find a couple of spots in Castelia. Taking a look at the map.
Mr. Osborne.
Yeah, Mr. Osborne.
Because you're probably gonna have to do some site acquisition.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
but in any event, do that and then figure out again what a medium-sized neighborhood park with some of the amenities that y'all talked about would cost. And I think that's something we could definitely do, and then have a number of what that looks like. The danger is I can't do it before this budget process is over.
I have a question here.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Director Walker, how many parks do we have?
Developed parks, we've got about 120. Total parks, we have about 162. Not 100. Not
Can I ask you to break that down in one more space? So I'm glad you used developed, because there are parks out there that are not. But you mentioned the medium. How many of those outside? How many of those would you consider would be comparable to what Councilman Smiley and Councilwoman Swearingen Washington are looking for what you would call that medium-sized park?
So we're talking like what, like a 4-acre park?
4 to 6 acres.
4 to 6 acre park, Mike. What did you say of our inventory? I mean, how many roughly?
Probably most of them.
Most of them are what we call a neighborhood park, which is what is being described. So somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 60 to 70 of those.
I mean, Morris Park is 6 acres.
Morris Park is 6 acres.
So I'm looking at this.
One you'll drive on the way home.
I'm looking at this Magnolia Castelia City of Memphis owned properties. There is one particular parcel that says 3.5 acres.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to identify a place to locate the park, do we take in consideration? So it's 3.5 acres. Would we build the park so we can fit inside this particular property, or are we talking about acquiring more properties as well to do it?
So a lot of it depends, because if you're building a new park, honestly, we discovered this with David Carnes. You run into all sorts of things that you don't anticipate. If you're building a new park, you have to build off-street parking. The days in which you could say, "Oh, well, we'll just figure it out in the neighborhood," that just creates animosity towards that park in the neighborhood. And it creates litter problems.
So,
there's lots of stuff.
Do we know? Okay, I know you know this. So the last time when was the last time we built a park?
A brand new from scratch park, Mike?
Fletcher Creek.
Fletcher Creek.
You got a great team, for the record.
Oh, by the way, Mike knows where all the bodies are buried because he put most of them there.
Wait, is that when we get all the? Is that when we get all
Nick's tired, y'all.
money? They went to the floodplain.
Is that one in the floodplain one? It's in Cordova. It's really the only park in Cordova.
It is a floodplain.
So you said in 2017? You said 2010. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm scared to ask this question. And so in 2010, how much did it take us to build that park? I'm assuming we built.
Mike?
Because I'm assuming it's bigger than the park that
say
we're.
your name, your title, and then tell them stuff.
Chasey's doing your job better than you.
So it's Mike Flowers, City of Memphis, park planner, 2599 Avery Avenue, park planner. Yes, sir.
I'm seeing you.
So in 2010, I'm kind of scratching my head. I don't remember exactly. I want to say it was like around $4 or $5 million.
4 or 5 million.
Yes. 2010.
That is
And it's
probably closer to $10 million.
And it's much, but the Fletcher Park is much larger than this type of park.
In totality of acreage, it is.
How big in terms of
but
acres?
most of Fletcher Creek is actually wooded, and we left it natural. You know, we had the amenities, playground, pavilion, off-street parking, walking trails, 110-foot pedestrian bridge over Fletcher Creek, 1 mile walking trail, and there's your $5-6 million budget in 2010. Without touching a lot of the acreage, we left it natural.
So you think to build? I'm
gonna say $8 million.
So we're looking at about $8 million to build a park in.
Assuming we don't have to buy the land.
I mean, city-owned property. Hopefully, we wouldn't have to buy it for myself.
So my one concern of that property that you just mentioned, 3.5 acres in that neighborhood available, I would suspect that it's a brownfield and thus probably environmentally contaminated. And so that would be additional cost to have it remediated.
Let us do a study
before we can build on it.
So in terms of funding for a study, what does that come out of Director? This is Chief Ryan. Does that come out of Director Walker's budget, or are we talking about the general service budget? Where should we put funding for this particular study? Because we want this to happen.
Funding for something like that would live in the budget of the division that it is impacting.
So how much does the study cost?
$25,000.
terrible numbers.
And truthfully, so in the case of Councilwoman Logan's, like we'd already anticipated doing that as a part of our A&E budget.
Right.
FY24.
So that's gonna have to get in line.
basically
I believe in jumping line.
No, you'll get tripped if you jump line.
It's basically
It won't happen. Trust.
it's basically a pre-construction services budget. You're just asking for pre-con on a scope. All right, I think we've got Councilwoman Logan bringing us home.
Well, I wanted
Johnson's
to know, we're talking about parks, and parks is a great thing when people are looking for somewhere to move to and to live, and, it's free and this thing. In terms of the, I think we talked about it before, how you get the score, the organization that scores all the parks and stuff, making certain that, I know we're like doing that study for all of parks, like the whole footprint of parks and where to put the next one and getting federal funding for them and deciding how to redo them when they're old. Should that be park by park, or is that something, I know you're doing your comprehensive plan, but so for me to put in for next year for us to do the feasibility study, because that's an old park, an old facility, and we need to know how to bring it up to today. Would that be an isolated situation, or would that be a part of what they're looking for as well?
So I think this actually goes to the point of what Chief Ford was going to talk a little bit about, which is that their goal is to take a look at long-term strategy for deferred maintenance. And I think that's great. I will also tell you the thing that you're referencing, the Trust for Public Lands 1 mile walk or the 10-minute walk campaign, is dangerous in a city that's 300 square miles because you can't. That requires you building a park every half mile.
But you can get anywhere in 15 minutes in your car.
You can't get anywhere in 15 minutes in your car. But again, we have 162 parks. In order to get to that thing that we're talking about, we're probably talking about north of 300 parks, which is an incredible maintenance nightmare. And so I would say that I think there are some things we as a city have to say when we annexed our way to Kingdom Come, we probably gave up on having a 10-minute walkable city. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take care of the ones we have.
That's what I'm talking about,
And
taking
she
care
can
of the
talk
ones
about
that
that.
we have. The ones that are in neighborhoods now.
Yes, this is a great segue.
Making certain.
Great segue into the Capitol.
Awesome. Thank you very much. One of the, as I said in my overview, one of the initiatives that we are working on right now and have been working on for quite some number of months is a very comprehensive assessment of the city, looking at all of its capital assets, its buildings, its facilities, its structures. We have done, All World has been working with us to do facility assessments so that we can see what they look like, we can see what kind of condition they're in, and then we can start to prioritize where we are. Is this a building that needs to be refurbished, or is this a building that needs to be raised and a new building put in its place? Is it worth it? Is it, to Mr. Flowers' comment, are we on contaminated land? Are we in a contaminated building? What are the assessments of those? So we're looking at all of those. And then to your point, Councilwoman Logan, is we have just put $200 million through Accelerate Memphis across our city. We are improving parks. We are improving community centers. We are building new community centers. We are building new libraries, and and Director McCloy is coming up next, talking about our next new library. But the important thing is, for years, the city was forced into deferred maintenance simply because we didn't have the operating dollars, and a lot of our buildings and our facilities fell into disrepair. And what we also are measuring comprehensively with this is, what does it really cost us to maintain the assets that the city currently has? What is a real maintenance cost of the new convention center? What is the real maintenance cost of the brand new fire station headquarters out there? There's a beautiful building. We want it to stay that way. We want to keep that upkeep. We want to look at what is the next logical place for the next fire station, the next library, the next community center, the next police precinct. How do we build all those together? And we're also combining this with John Zena, and he is working on this with us as well, combining it with his Memphis 3.0 plan that we adopted. We're looking at the Parks Master Plan, which Parks has done. We're looking at the library master plan that Director McCloy is working on, so that we can bring this in comprehensively with the idea that in 2027, the city is going to have capacity to do things that it has never been able to do before. We are dropping approximately $50 million a year into availability of funds to do these types of things. And what we want to provide is, here's a strategy for how we can start accomplishing that. That is $50 million a year, not one-time money. This is $50 million a year because of everything that we did with our debt structure. And we've been talking about it, and it sounds like this elusive idea out there of the debt cliff, but it is right around the corner. And we want to make sure that there is a plan in place, or at least here's a proposal. Here's a guide of which police precinct needs to be rebuilt, which, we talked about in fire a couple days ago about the fire stations and some of the conditions that our firefighters are living in because they are there. And what does that look like? Who needs to be first? Who's the next? Kind of giving it a priority angle, but comprehensively, because it's not just police stations and fire stations. It is the parks, the libraries, the community centers, the areas where we have the opportunity to reach out. So we're really, really excited about that. It's huge, it's comprehensive, and it's a lot sometimes to wrap your hands around. So we had to separate it from fleet, right? Because we talk about all the police cars we need and ambulances and stuff. So we kind of had to break it down into sections that we could really focus and wrap our arms around. So we're really excited about that. But it is coming, at least a proposal and a plan for what that could look like for the city of Memphis going forward.
So say that I think it's important too that council members are engaged in that process somewhat, because even though we spent $200 million, the Raleigh Community Center got broadband outside. And that is nice, but then they got broadband outside, and I know we got some of their stuff scraped off the window. The ceiling in some places, which should have been done a long time ago. But what's going into the different initiatives, I think there may be some opportunity for us as a city to get more for the bang, more for the bucks, more bang for the bucks, because Wi-Fi around the campus is good in some cases, but there may be something that's more of a priority to the community and to the life of that center. So I'm not saying it wasn't a good thing, but I'm just asking who's informing, or how are we informing that plan?
Yeah, and I will say this, I agree with you. The terrifying thing is that we put close to $20 million in deferred maintenance out of the $75 million that Parks was given, which most people will tell you that when you're setting these things up, you should set up a capital reserve for future deferred maintenance of somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20%, depending upon how ambitious you are. So that means that we spent 25% of our money on deferred maintenance in this project. It broke my heart how little it did. Because roofs, HVAC, electrical ate it up, which means that of that $75 million, a lot of it is stuff that people don't see. But if the HVAC isn't working, trust me, nobody wants to be in that center. Mm-hmm. And what it stinks is that Raleigh, although aesthetically not very pleasing, is watertight and cold, which I had to get the other community centers too. And so I agree with you though. That gets us to sustenance. What gets us to excitement? How do we get from here to here? And I think that's the pathway that Chief Ford is talking about doing.
All right. Well, look, as you guys go through that process, keep us posted. I know you guys are excited to present it, tie up all the money so we don't do anything with it down the road. All right. Director Walker, to the Parks team, thank you very, very much. Thanks for the good conversation. I think it was, in my opinion, pretty robust. And to your team, thanks for all the incredible work.
Thank you.
Very exciting. And last but certainly not least, we're going to push on through to libraries. It's not just books, folks. It's not just books. Wish I'd spent more time as a young man in a library. All right, you guys are already in the queue. Keenan, just out of the sake of time and your budget, because I think there's going to be more Q&A than you talking to us. Let's hit your strategic priorities, and then any major changes. Like I know you've got some position ads, those things. But other than that, and then we've got the one library. I think it's going to end up being more chatting about opportunities and things like that than it's going to be, we're going to change vendors from Brinks to some other servicer, right? Yeah. All right, whenever you're ready.
There we go. Are we? All right. So thanks so much for allowing us to talk a little bit about Memphis Public Libraries. We continue to be excited about all the activities and the increases in attendance and in programming and performance by librarians, volunteers, and also the Memphis Library Foundation and the Friends of the Library, who donate a significant amount of money to us on a regular basis. I should have introduced Chris Marzlick, who's our deputy director, and he's been here for 25 years or so. 22, sorry. And so anyway, so just in case you all don't know him, he's a wonderful person. And so, so we've just been focused heavily on meeting people where they are, something, we talk about all the time, that we want to make sure that our staff reflects that and that our staff reflects the city of Memphis. And at this point, we talked about this a little bit with some, we've now gone from from a different demographic to now we're matching and mirroring the city of Memphis. We have 66% African-American employees, and then we have about 20%, a little over that, Caucasian, and the remainder Hispanic, Latino, or Asian. And so we just want to make sure that we can bring people who match the needs in our community and who, bring a whole lot of additional skill sets that we would never have if we didn't have such a, broad tapestry. So anyway, so we've been obviously very excited about the opening of Raleigh. This has been a long time in coming. Councilwoman Logan, was there recently, and we've had just very positive feedback for that. I love the area, and the building is extraordinary. So now we're kind of moving on. The COSIT is open, and we're thrilled about that. Chef Eli Townsend is the person who's feeding us, and he's amazing. His food is fantastic. This'll, some of these things are just kind of experimental to see what might go in another branch. Right now we have a kitchen, which is a demonstration kitchen in Raleigh, and so we're trying to figure out, if we might, what all we can do with that. I mean, right now people are learning to cook, working with Methodist North on health and healthier eating and programming like that. And we're focused heavily on attendance. I understand that y'all got one of our regular decks. Just youths are hitting about 3/4 of our attendees. About almost 3/4 are children, and so we've been very successful with that. And we continue to make it grow. We're really focused on literacy always. And so we're just trying to see where all else we can plug in. We don't stay in the four walls anymore. we go through the Connect crew and through other outreach services. We're going to any place that anybody will allow us to go. And so we have a number of vehicles, most which are funded by grant funding. And, people are really unaware of how much, information, how much education can occur through these moments. So we are excited about Fraser. Fraser is promising to be great. It's on 40 acres, and I think y'all know that at 2220 James Road. That is slated to open in 2024. So it seems like it'll be, pushing maybe June 2024. And so, but it is moving along. There were some groundwork that had to be completed before we could move forward. So, and then that we're focused on Melrose. We're going to have a genealogy center as well as a traditional library on the bottom floor, and the second and third floors, which we're not developing, but with a partner we are, to have affordable rate and market rate housing on the second and third levels. So Melrose is coming along. There's a lot of pride. We are just focused really heavily on developing programming that's impactful, so for the future. So those are some of our big and exciting things. Levi also, well, we'll get to Levi with the CIP request, but
it's fine. You have the.
It's brief.
Yeah, it's one.
It's brief.
Councilman Ford, there's Councilman Ford.
So right now, the budget request in terms of the CIP for 24 is $750,000, and that's mostly for planning, just to initiate the project and to make sure that we have that we get it off to a good start. And we haven't identified the A&E or any of the contractors. This is just new news. We're just looking forward to that as well, because I think it's something that's been called for by many residents in Westwood and in the Levi area. And the current Levi branch library is only 4,800 square feet, so it's really kind of tiny.
And I think I'll add to that. For those of you that don't know, that the Southwest Twin driving in Councilman Ford's district is an incredible gateway opportunity, and it's a very large piece of property. And so to have the ability to relocate the police station and the library over there, and then help spur community opportunities and other community-led economic development can change that entire setup of that neighborhood, which has an unbelievable amount of rooftops around it, with these massive tracts of old property because of Southwest Twin, and then the retail that was across the street that's left the area. It's one of those, we often talk about Memphis 3.0 and large catalytic investments and large anchors. And this library and the police station relocating there fits like a hand in a glove. And it's really, really exciting. And I know Councilman Ford has led the effort, and his son, Commissioner Ford, have been big about this. And I've been to 2 separate neighborhood meetings, and to see the reaction from his constituents is it's very heartwarming. They're very, very excited.
Yeah, we've heard the community for years that they wanted an additional library, and one that's more that's larger and offers more services, and or that brings more programs and agencies and services to that exact area.
So I'm gonna just dive in. I know we didn't really go through your presentation, but here's what since we're just for the sake of time, because I know where we're gonna head. So I know that one of the things that is not in Chief Ford's CIP, and it's not Chief Ford's fault, it's Chase's fault. I'll talk to Chief Ford offline more about it, but it was mainly, we have 2 other libraries in your system, Poplar and White Station, and obviously Parkway Village, that aren't necessarily in the queue, but we know have to come. And both needed an opportunity, and may have an opportunity for one at Poplar and White Station. It's really Poplar and Truce Parkway. I don't know why I keep saying White Station. Poplar and Truce. Yeah, White Station, yeah, branch. Actually, it is the Joffrey Red branch. Yes.
We're getting the sign up.
That's going to be incredible. And for those of you that don't know, obviously they had the memorial for all fallen officers and very bittersweet, but in great honor, we have a delegation going to carve his name into the memorial for fallen officers, which is a really beautiful, sweet thing, but very bittersweet. But we have identified a piece of property and have a resolution coming for a nonprofit to acquire that property that is next to Oakville Baptist. Is it Oakville? Right at 9 Arnold? Yeah. Oakville Baptist Church and their cemetery, and that nonprofit's agreed to carry the property until the city plans to have the call right basically on it. With Councilwoman Swearingen Washington for Parkway Village. Now, I got it, and Chief Ford, this is 1,000% on me. I didn't know that we were going to have the chance to get something. My ask would be, I know it'll come in way out years based on what you've got, but it would be to find some minimal funding for community engagement and some what I would call A&E light, just to look at like a site plan, how it could lay out in case we needed to sell a portion of the property or get another community partner or whatever that would look like, but allow Councilwoman Swearingen Washington and some of the other members just to start to have that community engagement, but we'll have control of the property. I don't want to say too much until Tuesday, and even then I may be closer to the vest. Have a really unique way. Ultimately what happened is the property went into a tax sale. 2 people from Memphis bought it. The city probably would have jumped on it if they had been made aware of it, but it was the desire of the trustee to get a back quote on the tax rolls. The 2 individuals that the property went to, as Steve Barlow would call it, were a prime for land bank recidivism. And we went out, Councilwoman Swearingen Washington, Council Canale, and I went out to pick up tires for a little community service project. And when we realized there were over 700 tires on the site, felt like we were 1,500 tires on the site. Yeah. So we had to send out a heavy equipment to go pick the site up. So we're going to try and put it in the hands of a responsible nonprofit in the near term for when the city's ready. But the unique thing I'm just going to pat myself on the back. Usually the problem is that somebody will buy it. They'll hear the city's interested, and so then they'll want the city to come and pay them some massive premium. But they're still within the redemption right. And so we're going to redeem out the original entity who went defunct to take ownership of the entity and buy it back as if we're the entity that owned it and lost it in the tax sale. So we only have to pay them their paid in capital plus their 10% return in order to take control of the property instead of having to, So anyway, really excited about that. We're gonna have the chance to close on that in the next several months, and that's why and that's on me. But my only ask is that we put some funding in there to just begin the community engagement process. I know that our libraries are wildly expensive. I do know too that I think your model's starting to change and come down a little bit in square footage, et cetera. So that's my big thing. And then that's in the long-term planning. In the short term, we've talked about this, like we talked about parks and community centers. Parkway Village is another one for me that I didn't know anything about. I should have, but it's, you learn as you're on the campaign trail and you're on the city council. But that library serves so many purposes. It's hard to really absorb everything you're hearing from all the people that are there and why they use it. So I guess my general question is I'd like to see, before we get to wrap up, kind of like JB was talking about with community centers and manpower, how many libraries you've got, what your coverage looks like, what your programming. I know your programming is published, but just trying to figure out, are there things that we can continue to help as a council from a service center, knowing that libraries are no longer places that people go to read the Dewey Decimal System to find a book, to make a copy. They are job training. They are interview sites. They are community engagement sites. They are refuges. They are heating and cooling. I mean, they're everything now. I mean, they are basically community centers that don't have athletics. And I'm sure there's a ping pong table somewhere I don't know about. So I'd like to see some of that information, because I know, I feel like, I don't want to say I know, I feel like there are areas in which we could probably beef up services. So specifically in neighborhoods where we know that there are high crime levels of juvenile, there's opportunities there, and I just don't have the data to make an informed, like, I know I need to do X, Y, and Z. So if I could see some of that information, that would be very helpful. That's my ask.
We'll be happy to provide that.
Any other council members? On Levi, what's the go forward plan, assuming, that it's going to be, I feel pretty good it's going to be approved. What's the go forward plan on engaging A&E? I know that we've got some pop-up, Doug Carpenter's working on some activation things for Southwest Twin, and we've had a couple neighborhood meetings, but what's our go forward plan timing and getting that kind of up and off the ground?
Once everything is approved, then Director McCloy would have to go forward with a bidding process to identify an A&E person to start the process.
But you don't really have to bid that out. You don't have to. It's a professional services agreement.
It is a professional.
Yeah. So who designed our last 2 or 3 libraries? Let's not reinvent we want it to be unique, but we've got people we work with. I guess where I'm going with this is, and I'm going to take one out of old Chief McGowan's book here, is there are several contracts that we anticipate being approved, and when you guys get them ready to go July 1st, I guess, is anybody planning on voting against the Levi Library? Okay. Knowing that is going to occur, my ask is if you guys will go ahead and begin that process today. There's no reason to delay at least beginning the architecture and design. And really the problem I think that you may have more than anything is you need to hire a designer that's a master planner, because you're going to have to figure out how to lay that site out. And that's the big thing. So you need somebody that's going to have to master plan Southwest Twin, then design the library, which is different than something we've really done before, other than maybe Raleigh Town Center.
Well, Liberty Park.
And Liberty Park. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're fully immersed in that kind of thing, and I can talk with Director McCloy. We can certainly start putting the plan forward of how we would start that process. Because it's a large site. I know we're still in the community engagement phase of it, and I know that there is some HCD input, because they're the ones that handle the community engagement. And Councilman Ford, I'm looking at you a little bit, because some of that information is going to inform the overall plan.
Yeah, I think, and I'll. Yes, sir.
Hold up.
Microphone, Councilman.
I don't need no mic. I talk loud. I'm overdue. Supposed to have been done last year. Some of the different things. I'm gonna be nice, but after this budget, I ain't gonna be nice. And y'all talking about, is everybody gonna vote against it? I will have District 6 down here. Y'all think y'all had problems the other way. I will have everybody down here. I've been nice. Everybody else has gotten what they want. I want that taken care of. I don't want Miss Cash or none of them others keep putting me off. It should have been started. And y'all can deliver the message to everybody that you want to. Y'all ain't seen me act ugly. Okay? Because I've been nice to everybody else. And it's time for that particular spot. Okay? So, library, police, and I want everything else that's supposed to have been there last year. So I'm talking about weather. It wasn't no weather in North Memphis, out there in Raleigh, out downtown, East Memphis. I'm ready for that. We don't need to talk about it no more. We just need to get it done.
May I mention one last thing? I just want to say that I know that that's a very engaged community. And I want to make sure you have all of the information from that community. I was there at the last meeting.
I think,
I just want to incorporate
Well,
it. That's
let me
it.
point this out. Not that community, communities. It's more. I'm looking at Westwood, Indian Hills, I'm looking for Walker Homes. I'm looking for Lakeview Gardens. All of that's supposed to be for everybody in those particular areas. I didn't point one place out. I'm trying to get something for everybody to be part of, okay? So that's my issues.
I think the thing too is this is why the master planner we have to start work, because at some point, in order to begin, we're gonna have to pull the ripcord. And we know two things to be true. Well, we know three. We know the size of the site. We know we know what the library programming is, like the requirements, and we know what the police programming requirements are. And so we don't have to design out everything. We just have to know where the widget board's going to fit. And then Councilman Ford can make a decision on behalf of his community if he's happy with where those things are located, and then we can go. But we can't do that until we hire the A&E and we start that. So we've got to get that going now. Okay.
It's overdue. I mean, because, hey, you know, we all went out there and we walked it, okay? We had engineers, everyone else out there. They have postponed and postponed. No more postponement. It's kind of been getting under me about that, okay? That's one
Yes,
thing
sir.
I
We're
like.
moving forward. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. I'm very excited. It's going to change that entryway to that neighborhood. All right, colleagues, any other questions for the great Keenan McCloy and their award-winning, nationally published library services? Yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I had one question. This was really for Nick, and I forgot to ask, and anybody that is familiar with school. The school system in the summertime, their funding level, they still provide do they do meals in the summer? Yes. Yeah. Well, I was just curious, because if they're getting that, I mean, I know what happened in COVID, and I know we ended up taking that home, but it just goes back to our community centers and that engagement. And if there's funding that's sitting out there that's not being properly used, I'll happily take that. But
I'm not sure, especially with the COVID provisions
That's what I'm
ending
wondering.
today. So,
okay.
but they still. I think at one point though, because the entire district was free and reduced lunch, that they may provide stuff during the summer, but I'm not certain anymore.
All right, thank you to everybody, to all of our directors, Director McCloy, thank you. If we get that information, we're probably gonna see you back in budget wrap up as well. Colleagues, thanks for a really good week. When we come back, it's all things finance, Monday the 15th. We're doing grants, debt service funds, special revenue funds, including sources, IT, and then we're gonna try and wrap early, and then we've got council Tuesday.